name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British hand up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
So I've covered myself from head to toe in margarine, and I've surrounded myself in warmed towels. I'm ready to talk about the Bond girls. Are you excited, Chris?
I'm totally excited. I've gone for the aloe vera option, funnily enough. I've just put a load of aloe vera into a bath and bathed myself so it's gone in every orifice and through every crack and crevice, and I feel ready. I'm ready for it, Tom.
I'm excited for you, man. I thought I'd prepared myself adequately, and you've taken things to the next level. You've covered every orifice. I just gave myself a once over with the old "can't believe it's not butter."
Well, that's a good way to do it as well.
Very nice. So I think we're going to have to sort of control ourselves a little bit today, aren't we? Because a Bond Girls episode has the potential just to dissolve into this huge mess of primal grunting, doesn't it? So we're going to have to really try and control ourselves and just keep each other in check a little bit today, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I've got my man diaper on, so if things get a bit too hot to handle, I don't have to run away and expunge any sort of alleviate any tightness, put it that way.
Expunge, that's a good word. I like that a lot. Cool. So before we get cracking on today's episode, make sure you come and join us on Facebook. Just put James Bond Radio into the search box. There's much discussion to be had over there and lots of cool stuff being shared. Lovely stuff. Come and follow us on Twitter, which is at James Bond Radio. Tons and tons of stuff being shared on there as well. Good conversation to be had. And also come and join us on jamesbondradio.com with the comment system on any of the posts, any of the episode posts, or even indeed any of the blog posts. You can get involved in the conversation on there, and there's loads of people posting on there too. And there seems to be loads of activity on the old James Bond website lately with new blog posts. We recruited good old Jack Lugo, bless him, as a bit of a blog manager. So anybody who wants to write for the website, get in touch with old Jack through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and he'll possibly post you up on the blog. And he's been writing some stuff himself as well, which is also very nice and appreciated. Yeah. And then last but not least, come to our iTunes page. Just pop James Bond Radio into the iTunes search. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a lovely glowing 5-star review, that really helps us to rank higher in iTunes and attract more listeners and all that kind of stuff, which is lovely, isn't it, Chris?
It's absolutely lovely. That's what we love. We're a bit like Xenia on the top, aren't we? We like pulling high rank, and we like being high rank. So, the higher we rank, the better we'll look in Xenia's eyes.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Maybe.
She might give us a squeeze one day. Ooh. Lovely. Okay, then. So I've got a trivia question for you today, Chris.
Okay, go for it. Go on.
Are you ready for it?
I'm tense, but yeah.
All right, okay. Well, it's a Bond girl related question, as it's a Bond girls episode.
I didn't see that coming.
And my question for you is, why did Tiffany Case's mother name her Tiffany?
Now, I don't know Tiffany Case's mother. We've never met.
No.
But, I'll have to have a good think about that one.
All right, good stuff. Now, you could, I could be sneaky on this because there's a different story behind it in the film to the book. So I'll give you either or.
Ooh, okay.
All right.
Okay, that's very kind of you, actually. Very generous.
That's right. I'm a kind guy. What can I say?
I know. Well, okay, then. So my trivia question for this week is: are you ready, Mr. Thompson? Okay. So my trivia question is: how many Bond girls can you name whose surname ends in OVA?
Jesus. All right. Well, I imagine most of those are going to be Russian. But okay. 3 popped to mind immediately. I'm sure there's going to be more.
That's good going. Very good going.
All right, cool. Good stuff. Excellent work. So what we thought we'd do today with the Bond Girls is basically take it through sort of film by film and just kind of chat about the Bond Girls, maybe choose our favourite Bond Girl moment, that kind of thing, and give them a sort of a kind of a going over in terms of, their strength of character and what they bring to the role. Would you agree with that?
I'd say there's also another facet which we'll be looking at, probably a bit more heartily, which is obviously corresponds to our who's your favourite Bond girl question, when you got the character side, but you've got the sort of manly, blood-throbbing side to it as well. So I'm sure we'll get a bit of that discussion in as well.
The blood-throbbing side of things. What a lovely way to put it. It's nice. Cool. So should we get cracking then?
I think we should. And I think we should start at the start. And I think we should start with Dr. No. What do you think? Okay, so who is the first Bond girl we see in Dr. No?
The very first one. The very first one is good old Sylvia Trench herself.
Excellent stuff. Now, what do you think of Sylvia?
Now,
Miss
she's
Trench.
a classic, isn't she? She's like, if we look at the kind of the intentions behind Sylvia Trench, she was going to be a recurring character, wasn't she? Of course, she did recur once with From Russia with Love. We saw her one more time, but she was going to be like Bond's kind of bit on the side girlfriend who was going to recur through a lot of the films, but then they kind of ditched that idea. So bearing that in mind, I think she's got some weight behind her, isn't she? It's like she's Bond's basically friend with benefits. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. Like without a doubt. And the good thing is she's wanting it just as much as Bond's wanting it. It's not the case of Bond, picking up some old woman and then getting his own way with her. She's just as powerful in terms of, getting what she wants as Bond is. And so straight away, you've got a real strong female character who's getting what she wants. And, I think it's great because obviously you see in the casino, you've got that little one-upmanship, which basically we've seen Bond do in several other films as well. So that's a great sort of introduction. Obviously the actual introduction of Bond's amazing and her character really helps that. And then when she goes back to his hotel and you see her in his dress shirt playing golf and you're like, okay, now we're talking. Now we're cooking on gas.
That's a woman who knows what she wants. She's not afraid to go after it. And essentially she's the one that makes that happen, isn't she? Because she's snuck into his hotel room.
She broke into Bond's apartment, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of that's it. Oh, that's his apartment, isn't it? Of course. I've always assumed that would just be a hotel room randomly. How funny! All right, cool. Yeah, I've learned something today already, and we haven't even got started yet. How about that?
No, that's good.
So Sylvia Trench, obviously we see her come back in the next movie as well, which is kind of cool. Would you have liked to have seen that kind of play out where she was Bond's kind of like sort of long-term lover?
I mean, it definitely would have had to have a finite lifetime to it, wouldn't it? Because, I mean, you couldn't have done it for 24 films. The actress would have aged. I mean, unless you got, Sylvia Trench with different actresses each time, but you'd just be playing the same joke over and over. I mean, it might have worked for maybe Goldfinger, perhaps a Thunderball at a squeeze, but any more than that, it definitely wouldn't have done. I think, I'm happy with 2. And the fact that it is, you've got that slight recurring, even if it's only once, it's still something different to the rest of the Bond world. So I think it's cool. I
guess it's one of those things, isn't it, where like I guess it's like that would have impinged on the Moneypenny relationship, I think, a little bit if she'd have stuck around, because that's what Moneypenny is for, isn't it? It's for him to come in the office and then they have a bit of a flirt and a bit of banter, and she's like the unrequited love side of Bond and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if there was Sylvia as well, she would have sort of served that same function. So I guess that's probably why they ditched her.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it was a different director as well, and I think Guy Hamilton was probably the main reason why it changed as well. But probably for that exact idea. But she's a hottie, good Bond girl to start with, without a doubt. So
absolutely,
she can raise her eyebrow just like Sean and Roger can too.
She can indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she strikes a formidable figure across the casino table. That's for sure. So good on you, Sylvia. So next up, then we should talk about the one of only 2 actresses who wasn't dubbed by friend of James Bond Radio, Nikki Van der Zyl, in this film. We have Miss Taro. What are your thoughts on Miss Taro?
Now Miss Taro. Now, basically, a lot of people say Goldfinger set the standard, set the formula, and it did for a lot of things. But already with Dr. No, we have the classic 3 Bond girl formula. So you got the Bond girl at the start that you see, sometimes pre-credits, sometimes early on. Generally a good girl, not much happens. Sometimes they die, sometimes they don't. Then you get the main Bond girl, which is generally a bit later on. They're the one that survived to the end and Bond beds. And in the middle, you get like the femme fatale. You get generally they're like work for the main villain, and they try and seduce Bond and stuff like that. And you know, it happens in loads of Bond films. And obviously, Dr. No, it was already there, that 3 Bond girl formula. And the femme fatale is obviously Miss Taro. So yeah, no, I think she's good. You know, I like the way that she seduces Bond. Well, tries to, at least. She thinks she does. To a little apartment, a little sort of house rather. And the shock on her face when she thinks Bond's been killed and he suddenly rocks up. I love that bit. That's so good.
That is a brilliant. We talked about that way back in the day when we reviewed Dr. No, didn't we? How there's that scene where is it a towel he's got wrapped around his fists or something? Yeah. And just the way he's looking at her and he's walking towards her, it's like he's either gonna like strangle her or, you know, mac out on her straight away, and you can't quite tell which one's which. There's so much tension in that scene. I really like it. That's cool.
It's good.
Yeah, she's a sneaky one. I feel like Miss Taro gets a little bit overshadowed, to be honest. I feel like when in discussions of Bond girls, she doesn't come up all that often, and I think that's a shame.
No, I do, and I mean, because she's obviously working for the government, you know, the good guy, so to speak, but obviously she's working for Dr. No as well, and using her position to get some inside information. It must have been her that obviously warned Dr. No about the Bond receiving the Geiger counter. So he's, you know, Dr. No's got loads of people around Jamaica, all sort of informants, and she's probably one of the most important ones for him. But yeah, the fact that she, you know, uses her womanly wiles to get Bond in bed and stuff like that, and it's good. I think she did a job well. So what do you think about her sort of how she ended up type thing?
Yeah, well, what happens to her in the end? I can't remember.
Right. So basically, Bond knows that Dent is coming. Like she's trying to set him up. So what he does is he pretends they're going to go out for dinner. And then when supposedly the taxi turns up, it's actually the superintendent.
Course. Yes, absolutely.
And like he shoves her in the back, and then she spits in his face.
That's it.
That's like. Can you think of any other Bond girls that spit? I don't know.
Not off the top of my
head. Spits or swallows.
Yeah, yeah. That was an Austin Powers-ism right there. I like it. Very nice. Cool stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you can't really talk about Dr. No without talking about the overarching umbrella of Bond girlage that kind of overshadows probably every other Bond girl in the entire series, let's be honest,
for sure,
is good old-fashioned Honey Ryder. Now, it's no wonder Miss Taro doesn't get much limelight, because when you're up against Ursula, it's sort of like an unwinnable fight, isn't it, really?
Well, it is. I mean, you know, probably definitely one of the most famous scenes in the whole of the series is obviously Bond waking up, hearing this song almost as if, you know, is he still dreaming type thing. And then he sees Ursula, sees Honey Ryder coming out the sea in her bikini, knife and everything with the shells, singing this beautiful song, looking fabulous, like absolutely gorgeous, isn't she? Stunning and like island girl look. I would argue that's always one of those scenes, isn't it? We even use it in our JBR theme tune little video montage. We do.
It is one of the most iconic scenes in the whole series. I think. Oh, I don't know. That deserves a podcast in itself. The iconic moments of Bond, because there are so many of them over the years. But like that scene where she's coming out of the bikini, I think coming out of the sea in the bikini.
Coming out of the bikini. That would be a good scene. That would be a brilliant scene.
Yeah. That scene where she's coming out of the sea, is an iconic moment for Bond, but it is an iconic moment in the whole of cinema across the board. I don't think anyone could argue with that. Yeah. That is a moment and a half, especially for the times in which it occurred as well.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, in terms of sort of bikinis, they weren't really known all that well back then, were they? And obviously seeing it like that on the big screen in Technicolor as it was, you know, back then, it's got to be, you know, I'm sure quite a few gentlemen in the front row might have got quite an eyeful.
Absolutely, man. But, so we have to salute Ursula for the services provided to mankind, I think, with that little get-up, definitely.
Yeah, For sure. But I mean, Honey Ryder as a character, she offers a lot more than just her looks. I think she's an interesting character, isn't she? Because she's got that backstory about how she used to go collecting shells with her father, all these little islands in Fiji, Bali, Hawaii, wherever there were shells, type thing. And he obviously died when they came to Crab Key, and he was far too good a swimmer to die, according to Honey Ryder. So she thought Dr. No killed him. So already there's like quite a cool backstory there.
Yeah.
And because she's travelled, she never went to school, but she, learnt her knowledge through encyclopedia. But, so what's she up to? S or T or so? I think she's up to T, isn't she? So if you speak to her about an umbrella, she probably hasn't got a clue what the hell that is.
Yeah.
Or a wigwam or a xylophone or a zebra. None of that. She just won't get any of that. But anything up until T, she's sorted on. So what do you think about that then? The whole sort of backstory. I like the fact that it rounds the character, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time. Do you know what? I really like that. I really love those like Flemingisms with people's backstories. They feel like from a magical time gone by. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's, Karen Bay's backstory or, even Scaramanga's backstory in the books and stuff, they're all so like such a vibrant kind of stories that you just don't get these days. Do you know what I mean? I don't know anybody who grew up in the circus, for crying out loud. Do you know what I mean? And it's like with her backstory and like that story with what she did with the Black Widow spider and all that kind of stuff is just so like potent, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It just really paints a really cool picture. And it's like when you think about that, and all those classic Bond girls, not just Honey Ryder, but you think about all those and you compare it to like the recent Bond girls we've had, like it's different, isn't it? You know what I mean? You just don't get that strength of backstory, I don't think, these days.
No, definitely not. And that was a really good point, what you made about the, the Black Widow scene, because that's a really good one when she's with Bond and, he sort of reacts and she's like, oh, did I do wrong? And he's like, well, it wouldn't do to make a habit of it, knowing full well that he's going to be the next one in the bed without a doubt. I thought that was really cool. And she's also, she's resourceful. She is obviously a really good swimmer, can handle a knife. She helps Bond, she knows the island, at least a certain part of the island. So she can lead him to certain things. There is a naivety to her though, about the whole dragon and everything like that. So, but it wasn't just her. Obviously, Quarrel was the same. What did you think about that aspect? Do you think that was a bit silly, or do you think it was all right? Or
no, I think again, you've got to think about it. Like, okay, so Ian Fleming was very sort of set in his ways back in the day of like people's backgrounds and things like that, and you get those kind of stories that sort of make you go, ooh, a little bit by today's standards. But again, I mean, even in '62, it was like very much a man's world still. Do you know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. And I think, I don't know, I feel like it just belongs to like a romantic part of history. Do you know what I mean? That just, you wouldn't really get characters like that these days. Especially we haven't had like one like Ursula in a long time in a Bond film, like that sort of just classic bikini clad Bond girl who's kind of like, hasn't gone to school, for crying out loud. Do you know what I mean? I think that's brilliant, man. I think that really makes it vibrant and makes it really stand out.
Yeah, it's cool. And what do you think about sort of the latter parts of the of the film, when obviously they go to Crab Key, they see Dr. No, Honey gets taken away, doesn't he? They're having the meal, and Bond sort of says he doesn't want her, and she thinks that he's kind of like turned her in, so she gets taken away for the guards to amuse themselves or whatever. Yeah. And obviously Bond sort of comes to her rescue later on. She's trapped with the water coming in. So there is a bit of, rescuing the damsel in distress, but she's still, I still wouldn't consider her a weak character by any means. I think she's got a lot of facets to her, which make her, make her a really good, really, really strong first Bond girl.
Definitely. I think like the sort of the lazy thing to do would just be to class her as, the classic bimbo style Bond girl, but I don't think that's her. Okay, she hasn't got the education to back it up, but she's got the kind of the grit and the kind of sort of the spunk, if you will, to kind of get by in a man's world. And when he comes out of the trees at the beginning where she's singing and he's singing as well, very nicely, I might add, Sean. and she's like, "Who are you?" She's got the knife out and all that kind of stuff, and she's ready for action. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's cool. And again, that backstory with the spider, I think, is brilliant. It shows that she's just got that little bit of grit to her, as well as being absolutely beautiful.
Excellent. So basically, we're totally double thumbs up, super in favour. Honey Ryder, first Bond girl, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
classic. You'd put her up there again in any Bond girl list, wouldn't you? Without a doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt. I would even wager that she is perhaps the number one Bond girl for most people. I would say that's the popular opinion. If, the Daily Mail did a top 20 Bond girls or whatever it is, I would wager if she wasn't number one, she'd be top 3 for most people.
I know the Daily Gleaner definitely would put her as number one.
They would indeed. Do you know what? My parents went to Jamaica on for their anniversary a few years ago, and they brought me back a copy of the Daily Gleaner, which I've still got on top of my wardrobe. Brilliant.
Have you?
Yeah.
Nice. Actually, I love that, actually. That's really good. So there are a few other sort of honorary mentions that we have to give. I think definitely Mary Trueblood, so Strangway's secretary. Obviously, she's, with this is where we see the 3 blind men come in. They kill Strangways. They go to the house and they kill Mary Trueblood. They kill his secretary. Yeah. So she gets a bit of a mention, I think, because obviously she's in the book as well, isn't it? The character, and it sets the ball rolling, I suppose, with showing you the fear of what's behind Dr. No, I guess. And also there's the photographer, obviously, who tries to catch Bond at I only got your hat at the airport. Yeah. And she's quite good. I like her because she's a bit evil, isn't she? Like she's not got a huge amount of screen time. That bit though, where she's, Quarrel's got her arm behind her back and she like breaks the flash camera bulb and then like scrapes it across his face, drawing blood and stuff. Yeah. That's quite a good scene. That one.
She's another spunky one, isn't she? She doesn't mind getting stuck in like that. Yeah, absolutely. No. Yeah, definitely.
She's got
definite honourable mention.
She's got that evil look to her. Yeah, without a doubt. And then I guess the other two are Sister Rose and Sister Lily, which I guess they don't really do much, but still quite cool. I guess.
Got to give them a name check. You got to,
why not?
Give credit where it's due.
They know. Yeah, they've got lots of good brands of cigarettes. So
that's very true. So, Chris, what would you say is the best Bond girl moment in Dr. No?
I mean, there is only one, if you had to choose one. Yeah. And I think it would be the same for any person in the whole wide world. There is only one moment, and I know you're going to tell me exactly what I'm about to say as well.
Yes, I would say it's when Honey Ryder comes out of the sea, Chris.
I would say absolutely. I mean, it's got to be, hasn't it? Yeah. I mean, Sylvia Trench and Bond in the casino, amazing. Yeah. That's a brilliant, really good first sort of Bond girl type scene. The bit with Miss Tara, the first sort of attempts on Bond's life from a woman, is really cool. But I mean, Ursula coming out Honey Ryder coming out the sea is pretty special.
Like I say, I think it's an iconic moment for Bond, but it's an iconic moment for all of cinema. I think that one is just such a moment that it blows you away, doesn't it? Especially again for the times in which it was made, 1962. Never seen anything like that on screen before, and still here we are, 53 years later, still talking about it. You know what I mean? It's right up there, isn't it?
Excellent. Good stuff. So that's Dr. No, I think pretty much done and dusted. Yeah. So on to From Russia with Love. So again, we have Sylvia Trench for the second and last time. So what do you think of her sort of portrayal in Russia?
I like this. I like the fact, what I enjoy seeing is a little snippet of Bond's life when he's not on the job. Do you know what I mean? And by on the job, I mean
when he's
work.
not on the job.
I mean at work, not on the job as in, that other time. But yeah, there he is in a little rowing boat. He's got his champagne tied to his toe and all the rest of it, which I think is a nice thing.
Very classy.
Yeah, sticking it in the river, like it, old school. And you see a little glimpse of his Bentley as well, don't you? Which is nice. I kind of like it. I like the fact that it's just a little snippet into Bond's kind of private life, away from work. You got Sylvia Trench back again. Great character. I like just the whole sort of interplay between them. I would have liked to have seen it carry on, over more movies. Like you say, I don't think you would have taken it too far, and maybe it would have impinged a bit on the Bond Moneypenny relationship. But I don't know. I think Sylvia Trench, classic character, great Bond girl. She looks great, and she's definitely a good one. But what I will say is there was a little not theory, but there was a little thing going around the internet a little while ago, which was about Sylvia Trench. and Paris Carver, which was basically saying what they should have done is have Paris Carver be Sylvia Trench, because then it would have linked back. I think we might have talked about this once before, but
yeah, we did.
It would have linked back to the fact that, you know, in Tomorrow Never Dies, she says, like, how about the words "I'll be right back," gives him a slap and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, there you go, Bond's disappeared, left her in the lurch, and that would have related back to Sylvia Trench, because we just never see her again. You know what I mean? What do you think about that idea? Do you like it?
Right, I've got two opinions on that.
Ooh.
Two completely contradicting opinions.
Okay.
My first one is that I love sort of little links back. I love the history. I love it in For Your Eyes Only with, you know, Tracy's grave. I love it in License to Kill when they mentioned that he was married before. I do love the little throwbacks that we hear in later films or the early films. And so if something had happened along those lines, if a Sylvia Trench thing had come back, you know, I definitely wouldn't be against that. But for the character of Paris Carver, I think that Bond, especially when you see Brosnan, he was obviously in love with Paris Carver at some point. Yeah. And things got deep, you know. We've only ever known that he's loved Tracy, Vesper, and I'd say Paris Carver is probably the only other one. So, and what he had with Sylvia Trench for me was friends with benefits. It was like, you know, fuck buddy on the side. Great stuff, but there was nothing more than that, was there? You whereas with Paris, you could tell that they'd obviously been together, and you know, there was a lot more emotional contact. I think, I don't know, that's how I see it. What
that's
about you?
True. Yeah, no, actually, saying that does make a lot of sense. I think the thing with it, when you look at Paris Carver, like especially in a lot of those press photos, she's got a very similar haircut, very similar look. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost like you were looking at the 1997 version of a Sylvia Trench. So that is the relationship. But yeah, I guess Bond, with Sean Connery's Bond, never really showed that much affection for her. It was just, you know, a little something to pass the time. Whereas obviously the Tomorrow Never Dies backstory between Paris and Bond was, you know, a little bit more in depth than that. That's a good observation, Chris. Well done.
Yeah. But still, it was great to see her in the second film, and there we are. So going on next, we've got Vida and Zora. Now, what do you think of these lovely beauties?
Well, I must admit, this scene, the Gypsy Girl fighting scene, man, is brilliant. I love it a lot. I think for 1963, it's very, very pushing it to the edge of what you would normally see in the cinema. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, it pushes the boundaries, but also it's entertaining. Like, I can imagine, you know, seeing a girl fight, normally you think of the classic sort of pulling the hair, scratching, you know, slapping each other, being what is the stereotypical woman's fight. And this is completely not like that. Yeah. Okay, you've got the pulling hair and stuff, but you've got like wrestling moves, you've got throws, you know, kicking each other. One of them's about to smack a bottle over the other. And it's a proper hardcore gypsy sort of bare knuckle wrestling fight. And I love it. I think it's great. And the music and the tempo with the scene, and like the fact that Bond and Kerim are just basically watching them as it's sort of going on, I think is really cool. I love it. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, man. I think when you consider what it is, it's two women fighting on screen. And like we've mentioned before, like women fighting is a thing for the censors. Like I know a lot of the fighting between Xenia and Natalia was like trimmed down because all violence between two women is too much for people to take and all that kind of shit. But then when you take a scene from Rush with Love, which is like over and above whatever you would see in GoldenEye, do you know what I mean? It's like it's way more intense. You know, the other thing to mention is they are somewhat scantily clad as well, which for me is always a bonus, Chris. I mean, I would always say, if you could have a scene where there's women fighting, let's take it to the next level and have them scantily clad as well.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good move for several reasons. Yeah, mainly for personal sort of reasons, but also
if you or I ever directed a Bond film, man, it would plunge into just absolute debauchery. I think, but
it would. Maybe that's what's coming. Bond 25, the debauchery Bond.
Yeah, you never know.
No, so I think it's great. And it's a nice little snippet because you get to see kind of the gypsy life, and you know the gypsies are obviously allies and friends of Kerim Bey. You see their community, you see them all sort of, you know, it's almost a bit like, well, it's travelling gypsies, but they've got the farmland and all stuff like that. And then Bond shows this sort of softer side, shall we say, when after, the big battle and Krylenko and the others go away, he asks Vavra, the sort of leader of the gypsies, can he stop the girl fight? Which is, obviously that's, Vavra sort of says, yeah, okay, we'll do that. But, and then Kieran Bay tells him, well, now you've got to decide. And so for the next bit, we see montage clips of Bond being sort of, his shirt's being sewn, they're giving him drink, water or drinks or whatever, patting him down, giving him a little massage, whatever it is. I mean, that how do you, okay, in your eyes, Tom, in your mind, how do you think he decided? What did he have to do to decide? And do you think he ever actually decided?
That is a very interesting question. I mean, that moment, like when we reviewed From Russia, when they are both basically delivered to him, and he's like, "Oh, this could take some time." That is basically for 1963 is implying 3 ways straight out of the gate, which I think is brilliant. I fully encourage that sort of behaviour. Excellent, bring it on. For me, it is a tough one. I mean, that is the ultimate choice, isn't it? Though. I would have to say, purely because she was so lovely, I would have to choose Zora personally if I was Bond. What about you?
I mean, I would do exactly what Bond done and basically say, I still can't decide yet. I'm going to need more time, and then just play on that until I can't keep going anymore.
I feel like, I feel like that gypsy debt would be like, Chewbacca's debt to Han Solo, where it's like a lifelong pledge. You could really drag that bad boy out if you wanted to. Yeah.
I think you could, and that's exactly what you do as well. Yeah. Although obviously after a while, Karim, he has to leave, and I don't think he's decided, because they both come out, they're both smiling and waving him away. So I think it was just everyone's happy. It was everyone was satisfied from whatever.
I would imagine Connery's Bond has more than enough sexual prowess to send them both away smiling. Do you know what I mean? I think that would, he would have sorted them out good and proper. Yeah.
Cool. That's what we like. That's
Very
what
nice.
we like. Okay, so on to the main Bond girl for From Russia with Love, Tatiana Romanova, also known as Tanya. So what do we think of Tanya Romanova?
Well, first up, I've got my first one for today's trivia question. There it is.
Ooh.
There it is.
Okay.
Nice. But yeah, okay. So let's look at Tanya. This is an interesting one in the sense that she's not really a damsel in distress in the traditional sense. She is, but she isn't, in the sense that she is under the assumption that, she's been sent on a mission kind of thing to kind of lure Bond. But at the same time, she doesn't realise she's being double-crossed, and she doesn't realise she's working for Spectre. She thinks she's working for Mother Russia. So
that's right.
There is that sort of damsel in distress side of things, but with a different angle on it this time, which I think is a nice touch. She's very much sort of like, she comes across as like the naive youngster, doesn't she? She definitely has that kind of vibe about her. She's not like a, like we said about Honey, she's definitely, she's spunky. She can make her way in a man's world. I feel like Tanya is probably a bit more easily led. She's not sort of, she's not really got that kind of gritty side to her. What do you think?
No. Well, I guess if we look at her backstory, we know she was into the ballet, but she couldn't get through. She's a bit too tall. We know she's basically a cipher clerk, isn't she? So her job, although Honey didn't really have a job, she was travelling the world collecting shells, I suppose. Tanya's is almost like a bit of an office job, isn't it? Stuck behind the desk as a clerk type thing. So there's a big difference there. But like you said, the interesting thing is she is, would do anything for Mother Russia. In fact, she thinks she is doing sort of everything that she can for Mother Russia, indeed. So that's quite a cool part to her character. There's a brilliant scene between her and Kleb when she goes to see Colonel Kleb, and she's like, head of operation for Smersh. And there's a bit where Kleb sort of almost caresses her leg, and you kind of like, she's not, or was it a leg or a shoulder, and she sort of moves away. And I like that bit. And then when Clegg sort of whips the sort of chair and she sort of jumps up, it's you can tell she's basically bricking it a bit, which is fair enough. But no, overall, I think she's a solid character. I think she looks stunning. I think Daniela Bianchi is another beauty. With a neck choker.
Oh, goodness me! Yeah,
yeah. But I do agree there is that naivety to her. It's almost like she doesn't quite know what she's getting herself into.
Yeah.
And obviously it gets to the point where she meets Bond. She, even though she has a small mouth, she does what she can.
Yeah.
And they sort of bed each other, and then she sort of pretends to help Bond by getting in plans to the consulate and stuff like that. So she does all that, even though there's that that double twist to it.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole sort of time. But then it gets different. It gets to a different point then when they steal the Lecter and they get on the train, and that's the point where Bond starts to Bond obviously knows it's a trap from the start, doesn't he? But that's where things start to unravel even more, I think, and. But it's kind of by this point where Tanya sort of realised, well, actually, this Bond chap's not bad.
Yeah.
But then things do get a bit vicious, don't they? Bond gives her a bit of a whack.
There is that scene in there in the train carriage where he gives her a proper clap around the ear roll, doesn't he? And that's one of those moments. Everyone tends to reference the Roger giving Miss Anders a little bit of an arm twist, and nobody seems to remember the From Russia with Loved One, but he proper clips her one, didn't he?
Yeah. He does, yeah, for sure, which obviously we don't see too often, which is good. So it is an interesting one. I think the chemistry is definitely there. I love the bit where they're like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. David Somerset. And you can see they really have fun together, when they're joking around where Bond pulls out all this old school lingerie and she's like, this one I'll wear in Piccadilly. And it's like, 4 o'clock in Piccadilly, you're not going to wear that type of thing. But, there's really good chemistry there, which I love. And then obviously after the whole thing with Grant, she's been drugged. They managed to take her off, and then she sort of sleeps off in the truck for a little bit, and then they escape by boat. And I think it's definitely, I'd call her a solid Bond girl without a doubt.
Yeah.
Maybe not as iconic as some of the other Bond girls, but definitely a worthy Bond girl of her own.
I think if you were ranking them in order, which we might do in a future sort of Bond girl installment, I think she would be amongst Bond fans. She would be up there as a classic kind of character. But like we often said with the villains, like if you were making that poster of all the classic Bond villains, if you were doing one with the Bond girls, she would be on the poster. I don't think she'd be featured particularly heavily. Do you know what I mean? What you'd have, without a doubt, you'd have Ursula in her bikini in the middle with her hand on her knife about to pull it out. Yeah. That would be the centerpiece of the whole thing, without a shadow.
Definitely.
And she'd be on there, but I would imagine the casual fan would be like, oh, who's that one? And then you'd give him a slap around the head and say, that's Tatiana. Yeah.
As you do. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think like at the end of the day, I suppose we need to give her credit because, it's Bond versus Kleb. He's got his chair kind of mangled and she's trying to kick him. And it is Tatiana that kind of saves the day with that. So she does come good at the end.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And that's quite nice as well. It's a nice round bit because obviously you've seen her character, will do anything for Russia, as we've said. And then at the end, she's almost going against sort of her initial belief, which is cool because it does round her character. And like you said, she saved Bond. Bond's been saved by women a few times, actually. And obviously that is the first time, I would imagine. Yeah. But yeah, great stuff. So nice one, Tanya, for saving Bond.
Good old Tanya. So what about some honourable mentions?
Okay, so we've got a couple here. I think definitely Red Grant's masseuse in Spectre Island, played by Jan Williams, in a lovely little white bikini type thing.
Absolutely,
herself.
She wears it very well.
She does indeed, and I think that's definitely worth an honourable mention. In fact, I met her, Jan Williams, at the From Russia with Love Bond Pinewood event.
There you go.
We went to that very spot where she was massaging Grant.
Did she give you a massage?
Well, I whipped my top off, and then she just said, "Nah, it's all right." And then I was like, okay. But yeah, so that was quite cool. I think honourable mentions also go to Kerim's girl, Nadia Regin, who saved his life basically by calling him away from his desk for a bit of rumpy bumpy. Yeah. And had he not done it, he would have been blown up by the limpet mine. So
he was relaxing on the settee for a few moments, or so he said. But really, yeah. But there we go. And again, obviously, she shows up in Goldfinger as well, didn't she?
She does, as a different character,
of
but
course,
yeah, she does, same actress, yeah.
There we go.
Excellent stuff.
Good
So there we go.
So would you say, what would you say is your best Bond girl moment in From Russia with Love then?
Oh, that's an interesting. I mean, the girl fight would be up there without a doubt.
Yeah.
The girl fight would be good. But if we're talking about a scene with Tanya, I know you've got one in mind, which is an absolutely brilliant one. So I think you should.
All right.
I think you should go with that one. Go on.
Okay, so I think there's perhaps two with this one. The Gypsy Girl fight is a brilliant scene and a very memorable one for this movie and for the whole series, really. The two Gypsy Girl fights, way ahead of its time and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely one of the best Bond girl moments. But purely from just a brilliant moment that makes you smile, this is my favourite one, which is when they're on the boat and he's got the camera or the fake camera that's recording her. And she says, Gems, will you make love to me when we get to England? And he's like, day and night, go on about the mechanism. I just love that moment. It's just like, it's brilliant. It's just like brushing to the side, getting down to business. I love it. Brilliant.
Yeah, it is great. I think another really good Bond girl moment, which we have to mention, is obviously the bedding scene between Tanya and Bond. The scene that is used to cast any future Bond actor, that is the scene. And it is a cracking scene. And again, the chemistry is awesome. So that definitely gets a mention as well, I think. I think the more you think about From Russia with Love, the more moments kind of crop up as like being amazing sort of iconic settings. Like, okay, Gypsy Girl fight. That scene there is so important to the whole history of Bond, isn't it? Every single actor has to do that as their screen test. So it's that is a definite moment. So go on. Out of those three moments then, what's your favourite? It's a toughie, isn't it? I don't know, really. I mean, the fight is cool, but I think that for its pure history, I think I'll go with the Bond Tanya bedding moment. Because also at that time, Spectre's recording them, so it's a big part of the plot as well, isn't it? Yeah. So I'll go with that one, I think. All
right, I'm with you on that one as well. I think that's definitely a great Bond girl moment. Cool. And sadly, that little section where you see her you see Bond looking at her through those kind of net curtains and you see her kind of run across and get into the bed. That is actually a body double. That's not actually Daniela Bianchi, sadly. We've missed out there, but it was good.
So all those years of pause play, was for a body double.
They fooled us.
Crazy.
God damn it. Cool. So moving on. Okay, now, hey, this is a big one, isn't it? We've got Goldfinger.
This is a big one.
Now, let's start off with Dink, right? Because she's the first one we see, let's face it. In more ways than one, because she is the golden girl in the title sequence. That is Dink. And then obviously we see Dink at the Miami hotel as well. Now, what would you say? Would you class Dink as one of those sort of gritty characters who have a strong sense of character? Or would you say she's the classic sort of bimbonic Bond girl?
I'd probably go with the latter, to be honest. We don't really see a lot. Obviously, giving a bit of a massage and stuff, and she's a bit like obviously Bond slapping her on the ass, man talk. Off you go, love type thing. It's definitely more the bimbo. Okay, so when we hear the stereotypical bimbo Bond girl, Dink is one that you would classify in that area for sure. But she looks great. Again, nice byplay with Connery. I think it works well. And I think her, purely for the title design as well, I think it's brilliant. The gold paint and showing all the stuff from the film on a projected onto, I think works brilliantly. Yeah. So definitely a good little,
absolutely
good little intro there.
So really, Dink is there to A, provide a massage, and B, be slapped on the bottom and told to bugger off. So, great.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
but, great Bond girl nonetheless. Good stuff. Dink, we salute you. Good stuff. Now, next up, shortly after that, we see Bond girl number 2, which is Jill Masterson. Now, right, this is another iconic moment, isn't it? Again, not just for Bond, for all of cinema. So we see Jill obviously lounging on the sun lounger on Goldfinger's balcony, checking out the card game through the binoculars. Bond comes in his amazing one-piece toweling robe thing.
So good.
Beautiful. and they've got like a little kind of flirty interplay between them. I love that little section where Bond, flicks the microphone and he's like, "Now you're going to start losing Goldfinger," and all that kind of stuff. And she loves it. As soon as he does that, you see the look she gives him. She's down for it immediately. And who wouldn't be? Let's face it, But then, so you have that little bit. You have them sort of flirting. The president's entirely satisfied. That makes two of us, and all that kind of stuff. And then, bang, we get the Oddjob come in, knock out Bond. Excuse me. And then we have the moment, don't we, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, what a moment as well. I mean, this was on the cover of magazines all over the world. Life magazine's obviously the biggest one, but that image has been seen and been played everywhere. But rightly so, because what impact it has. Bond's been knocked out. He comes to. He sort of, his head's a bit hazy. He sort of gets to the sort of bedroom area, puts his hand on the wall, suddenly notices something, turns on the light, and even when he turns on the light, there's sort of a golden glow beamed against his face, isn't there? And then you get that ding, 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 and you're like getting the chills just thinking about it. And then you see like Jill Masterson on the bed, completely covered in gold paint. I mean, it is unbelievable. What an image that is! Unbelievable. Again, that's pure Fleming as well. Death by suffocation of paint. So the skin can't breathe. That's pure Fleming, and it looks brilliant. It's obviously a major part in terms of Goldfinger's character and his obsession. And I think that scene is brilliant. And also, I think Jill Masterson herself looks absolutely stunning. I think she's got those eyes which are like, you can tell, if she wants something, you can tell when she wants something, basically. Those eyes are going to say, I'm going to have you, something. She's definitely got that. I love that build-up scene as well, where Bond sort of, like you said, sort of tells Goldfinger to lose, and you can see she wants him. And then the bed scene is good, and then the iconic gold paint, brilliant stuff.
So a very important discussion needs to happen now, Chris, which is Honey coming out of the sea versus Jill Masterson in the gold paint. What do you think? This has to be the two most iconic moments in the whole series. I would say, some might say the laser between the legs, and that is way up there. But I think really, if you boil it all down, I think the two most iconic moments for everyone, not just Bond films, has to be Honey coming out of the sea and has to be Jill Masterson covered in gold. What do you think about that statement?
I think in terms of Bond girls, I'd 100% agree with you. I think the laser and I think Bond's first saying his line in the casino and Dr. No are two things that would definitely rival it. But in terms of just Bond girl scenes, those two are without a doubt the most iconic. As to what would be one over the other, I mean, I don't know. I suppose you would probably go Honey just because it was the first one and it's always at the top of the list, and everyone's seen it, everyone talks about it. But I think the Jill Masterson in gold visually is just as sort of powerful, evocative, and I think they're both amazing scenes.
Definitely. So. I don't know if I could possibly choose between those two. Actually, I think like you say, you've got to give Honey the props because she was the first one. But this is such an iconic moment. I just don't know if you can really choose between the two. But
the impact of it is just huge, isn't it?
Yeah, totes.
Yeah. Totes, man.
Totes. So, moving on then, we've got Miss Masterson number 2, Tilly, Gilly's sister, Gilly and Tilly. Good little team there. So what I like about this little segment is obviously you've got the classic thing of Bond cruising along. He's in his DB5, doesn't get more classic than Bond in his DB5. Cruising through the Swiss mountains, tailing Goldfinger at a distance, brilliant. And then obviously she comes along, boobing the horn, kind of trying to overtake and all that kind of stuff. And you've got that little kind of that thing of Bond. He's going to speed up, and he's like, "No, discipline. I've got to." I love that stuff.
I love that.
I love it.
So good at it. So good.
He's got to control himself, and then obviously, there's the whole thing with him running off the road with his little spiky wheels and all that kind of business. And what I love about Tilly is she's almost the opposite of Gilly in the sense that Jilly's up for it straight away. She's Jill. She's up for it straight away. Jilly and Tilly's just got a lovely ring to it.
I like that. Yeah, it's
Jill's just she's up for it straight away. You know what I mean? She's down for some Bond dong, whereas Tilly, she's not interested at all. She's on a mission. You know, and there's that bit where he drops her off at the petrol station, and he's like, "By the way, my name is," and she doesn't even let him say it. She's like, she just interrupts, and that's it, which I really like. And then you've got obviously the bit where Bond stops and he's watching Goldfinger and Oddjob from above, and there she is with her sniper rifle. She's a woman on a mission. I like that.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think I love that little car chase, that little drive-by and all that sort of stuff. I think, it is nice to see a woman that isn't falling at Bond's feet. Not because that always happens, but, generally as an outsider, that's what people think. But here we've got, the opposite. And like you said, that's good. It's quite interesting art. I've got a case just like that. You here for the hunting season sort of thing. It's like, no, they're for my ice skates. And the case is so obviously, way too thin and narrow to be for ice skates, which, but it's quite interesting, I think. But I do like that byplay in the car. Obviously when the tyre slashes come out, when before he drops her off, which is great. She's good. I think when we first see her, I think it's great. It gets to then when Bond's spying on the actual factory, then, isn't it? Yeah. So it gets to that point where basically he's sort of waiting for it to go dark. And he goes and does a little, brilliant. That's probably one of my favourite sneaky scenes, I think, is the scoping out the Goldfinger factory. Yeah, so good.
Definitely.
And then he comes out, it's brilliant. And then he comes out and he's about to sneak through the forest, but then he hears someone else and she's got a gun. And obviously, he goes to stop her and it hits a tripwire. And obviously it's Tilly with the sniper rifle. So she was going to stay in the forest and try and take out Goldfinger if she saw him, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting point, actually. The point when, I think we actually talked this when we were talking about Goldfinger, but when she shoots, when this is early on, when they're at the car and Bond is stopped and she shoots and it basically just misses him. Is she just a shit shot and she's trying to get Goldfinger, but he was too far away? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because it's kind of like it hits right sort of at the edge of the road, doesn't it? And if you imagine you've got the three roads kind of winding round, Goldfinger's right down the bottom, Bond's in the middle, she's at the top. I imagine she was aiming for Goldfinger. Yeah, I think she's just purely out for revenge, and she's on a mission.
Definitely.
So I think.
So what do you think of the bit in the forest then? Once after the tripwire goes,
so
what do you think of that?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it's her that sets off the tripwire with the sort of barrel of the gun, and then they're kind of, I suppose. That's one of those deaths, isn't it? She gets killed by Oddjob's hat. So that's another iconic way to go in a Bond series, isn't it? It's like to be killed by Oddjob's hat. That's a pretty big deal.
It is. But I do like in the build-up, there's that little car chase, and Bond basically there's gunfire in the back window and it's bulletproof, and she's like a bit, oh wow, okay. And then Bond opens, he gets the toys out, he does a little oil slick, cars fly off, he does a bit of a smoke screen, cars fly off, and you can tell she's looking at him going, man, this stuff is cool. And he just looks at her and goes, actually, you know what, yes it is. And he's just loving showing off his toys and stuff. I think that's a real great moment. But eventually, obviously, they get to the point where the car gets they hit that sort of ditch type thing. And then, he tells her to make a run for it. And then a brilliant scene again. Oddjob gets her right on the neck and basically, kills her. And that's an iconic way to go as well, isn't it?
Definitely, without a doubt.
Yeah. Two iconic ways, both sisters, one covered in paint, one gets hit by
I was just about to say that. The Masterson girls, both of them died very iconically in this movie. So there we go. So do you know what? I feel like that for something as powerful as that, the two Masterson sisters getting murdered by Goldfinger, well, getting murdered by Oddjob really, but who is obviously the henchman of Goldfinger, that sort of doesn't really get sort of tied up at the end. Do you know what I mean? It would have been nice for them to get a little bit of payback for them too, I guess.
I'm not quite sure how, but no, definitely. Yeah. Here's a question for you.
Go on.
Do you think it was Oddjob who actually painted gold onto Jill Masterson? And how did he do it without her? How did it happen? So did he knock her out and then paint gold on her if it was Oddjob? Was she knocked out and then gold painted on her? Was she held down and then gold painted on her? How do you think that happened, and who do you think was actually responsible?
Well, that's a good question. I would say my instinct would just be to say Oddjob did it, simply because he was, obviously we knew he was in the room because we see him take down Bond. But Goldfinger strikes me as the kind of guy who would probably get off on doing the painting. Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
Yeah, so it could be one of those where, perhaps they tie her down or whatever, and Goldfinger gets his paintbrushes out and goes for it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, completely. In a similar way that Scaramanga rubs his golden gun all over Miss Anders' face and all this sort of stuff, I think Goldfinger would do a similar thing, but with the paintbrush and get the paint, and he'd take a lot of pleasure in it, and he'd be like slapping on. I think Oddjob would have been the one to either restrain her or maybe knock her out or whatever it is. Maybe stun gas, or maybe even a tranquilizer, the same gun that they use on Bond later on. Maybe they put her out by tranquilizer. Yeah. So, she's not struggling. And then it's like, Auric, it's your call. Oh no, it wouldn't be. It'll be and then Auric would rock in with his big tin of duplex gold paint or whatever it is. And,
one R for she's ready, or 2 R's for come back later. There you go. So there we go. Cool. The Masterson sisters, done and dusted. So next up, oh my goodness, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
It's Pussy Galore.
Yes.
Who
it is.
Oh my goodness. She is up there in the iconic stakes as well, isn't she? Good Lord.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, the name is probably the most popular Bond girl name in the history of Bond, without a doubt. It's Honor Blackman who plays it is unbelievable. I think she's amazing. Looks absolutely fantastic. And, I love the fact that apart from obviously Monica Bellucci being the most recent, she's like the oldest Bond girl to date, apart from obviously Monica. Yeah. And I love that sort of, just her and Sean Connery, Bond just goes so well.
Yeah, it's like the opposite to Tatiana, isn't it, from the previous film? Tatiana's very much like a young girl, very naive, whereas Pussy Galore, she's been around the block, she knows a thing or two. She's, essentially a gangster herself, isn't she, She's a tough cookie, and I like the way she just sort of rebuffs Bond. I like the bit where he's underneath Fort Knox, the little model peeking out, and she pulls his legs out from underneath him. Like she's a hard nut, man. I've got a lot of time for Pussy Galore.
Yeah, without a doubt. She's obviously a pilot. She can fly planes. She can fly a helicopter. She's got her own sort of flying circus type thing. She can do judo, so she can handle herself. She's clever as well. She knows that she can. Basically, she's quite ambitious in terms of, wanting her own island and stuff like this. She's got a bit of greed to her from that sort of side. And she's, she'll stand up for herself completely. I think she's probably one of my favourite Bond girl characters in the entire series.
Definitely.
I think it has to be.
I think so good. Like you say, her name, the name Pussy Galore, I think, is perhaps the most famous Bond girl name of all of them. I think you look at Honey Ryder, and a lot of people would say she's the most iconic Bond girl, and to look at definitely with the white bikini and the dagger on her leg and all that kind of stuff. But if you go out to the civilians on the street and ask them about Bond girls, they would say, "Oh, that lady who comes out of the water with the bikini on." And they might not know her name. I don't know whether they would know the name Honey Ryder or not. Whereas everybody knows Pussy Galore, don't they?
Yeah, everyone, without a doubt, everyone. And I think that's great. I think it's fantastic. Again, it's an actual Fleming name, which is great. And I'm glad they didn't go for Kitty Galore, which at one point apparently they were considering. Yeah. And Honor Blackman made sure they didn't by getting the name out there before they had a chance to change.
The American censors, wasn't it? That was deemed too tough for the American audience, which is unusual, isn't it? Yeah. Us Brits being too naughty for them.
Oh, well, that's it. Too naughty. But there's a great bit, when Bond and Honey obviously go into the stables and have a bit of flip fun, flipping each other over and then getting it on in a hay, which I think was pretty cool.
Little bit rapey, that sequence, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit rapey. It is a little bit rapey, but that's how they did it in this.
Yeah, very true. It's just how they did it in those days.
No, so it is bad, but I think there's so many cool sort of facets to Pussy Galore's character. I think she stands up as one of the strongest Bond girls for several reasons, and I think we had this question quite recently. If you could see Bond sort of pairing off with any of the previous Bond girls, aside from obviously Tracy, Vesper, or perhaps Paris, who would you say he'd be most suited to? And I'd say Connery, Bond, and Pussy Galore would probably be the best match out of anyone.
Interesting.
I think it's great.
Without revealing any spoilers or anything like that, obviously I'm halfway through Trigger Mortis at the moment, and obviously, as we all know, Pussy Galore kind of comes back in Trigger Mortis. And yeah, I think without revealing anything, I think that's an astute observation. I think she's one of those for Bond to kind of really be into a girl. I think she has to be one who's has a very strong personality, who's very independent and knows her own way in the world. Whereas he would never settle down with a Tatiana. Do you know what I mean? That just wouldn't happen. He'd get bored within a week, Whereas a Tracy is somebody she's very sort of like a damaged character, but she's not a shrinking violet. She's out there. Yeah. She's tough. She's, behind the wheel of the car chase and all that kind of stuff, and it's the same with Pussy Galore. She's got a flying circus, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there we go, Pussy Galore. So I mean, again, in terms of the rating, right up there. Got to be right up there for me, without a doubt, for several reasons, which is great. So there we go. So what about honourable mentions then?
Well, I just realised I made a little cock up at the beginning of the Goldfinger segment where I said that Dink was the first Bond girl we see. Of course, it isn't. It's Benita in the pre-title sequence. How could I forget?
It's Nadja Regin.
So she's back. Karen Bay's missus. She's jumped into another character, and she's come back with some belly dancing skills, which is great. And what I think is great about her is she takes part in one of the best pre-title sequences ever, and she is in this amazing sequence where the kind of the dude gets thrown in the bath, fan gets kicked into the bath, bang, electrified, shocking, positively shocking, bang, you're into Goldfinger, and she's an integral part of that part of that sequence. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I love seeing the sort of thug coming up in a reflection of her eye, and then basically she gets hit. And then by the time she's actually come to, the fight's over, and Bond just gives her a little look, doesn't he? A little look as he's putting on his jacket, and then bang, out the door, and brilliant. I love it. I want to watch it again.
Me too.
Okay, so I think other honourable mention will go to Mei Lee, Pussy's sort of assistant in the airplane, in the plane.
Yep.
And I think there's quite a cool scene when Bond's in that sort of room at the back, and he's noticed there's a little spy hole in the clock, and so Mei Lee goes to spy on him, and he puts his suit jacket on, and then she moves on to another one, and then he notices there's one behind the mirror, and he's doing a little shaving. He puts the shaving foam on it, and he knows there's that little play. And I like that scene. I think that's a really cool scene.
That is a brilliant scene, very playful, and shows how observant Bond is in the field for things like that, which is good. Absolutely. So what would you say, I mean, silly question really, let's face it, what would you say is the best Bond girl moment in this film?
Well, the Golden Girl's got to be the most iconic moment from that film. Well, Bond girl moment from that film, even though it's not with Pussy Galore. I think it's just there's no getting away from that whatsoever. I think in terms of Pussy Galore, I think just Sean Connery saying pussy is amazing. In every single time that he says it, it's brilliant. I suppose you've got the "I must be dreaming" scene when he comes to and she's there when we first sort of see her in the airplane. I think that's kind of quite a classic, isn't it? Sort of scene. So I think for the whole Pussy Galore thing, maybe that one. But I think overall, you're not going to top Jill Masterson. Gold.
Again, one of the most iconic scenes in the history of cinema, not just Bond. I mean, you just don't beat that, really. So, very nice. So, moving on. Oh, I know you're going to get excited, Chris, because it's time for some Thunderball, which contains one of your favourite Bond girls. I know that much.
Yeah, well, Thunderball. In fact, Goldfinger is a cracking film for Bond girls, but Thunderball it's got so many hot Bond girls. Like, it's filled with them. I love Thunderball for lots of reasons, and that's definitely one of them. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So the first one we see, the first Bond girl of the piece is good old Patricia Fearing at Shrublands. And what I like about Patricia Fearing and the Bond interplay is how, like, Bond's obviously a cheeky chappy, you know, and she's sort of just doing her best to, like, not give in to him and like be professional, and he's not letting it happen. And I like that little struggle between the two of them. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. The chemistry is brilliant between the two. There's the whole mink glove bit I think is great, and even early on where she sort of notices that scar, and he's like, what was it, from another widow from a what was it again? Something like he didn't like me at all, sort of thing, you know. And there's nice little sort of chat going on there. And then, I mean, if you're talking about rapey scenes, the whole sort of steam bath scene has got to be up there with probably, I'd lose my job. My silence could have a price. It's like
blackmailing her into bed or into the steam room. Yeah, absolutely.
Into the steam room, which is pretty cool. Well, no.
Thing is, Chris, you could get away with that sort of behaviour in those days. It's just you don't get away with that these days, sadly.
See, I went to the gym the other day, and like I went for a little sauna and tried it on, and I just got a slap.
Didn't work out.
It didn't work out. A slap and a
restraining order. That's what you get in 2015.
That's it. 2 nights in the cells, but there we go.
What a difference 50 years makes, eh? Good God. Patricia Fearing, good stuff. Next up, we have friend of James Bond Radio, Paula Kaplan. Very nice, otherwise known as Martine Beswick, obviously. How do you feel about Paula?
No, I think this is another really good character, because she's almost like, obviously she's part of the, she's there to help him out. So she is sort of part of the, whether it's MI6 or an affiliation towards MI6. But I think it's good. And interestingly, I don't think there's ever a Bond Paula sort of, you don't see anything happening between them. Like, obviously, sometimes you don't see stuff, but it happens. Yeah. But with Bond and Paula, I really think they're good chums, and because they both work, they both help each other out in the jobs. And obviously, Martine almost backed that up with her own words, saying that Sean Connery wasn't her type. And as funny as that sounds, because everyone will go, well, everyone loves Bond, everyone loves Connery. There, not everyone is everyone's type, sort of thing. And I think it is just the case that they work together, good chemistry. And I love the bit when they're on the boat and Bond's just sort of gone diving. He's seen Domino, he comes back up and he's like, tell London I made contact with the girl. And she's like, that's not what I call contact, and it's a really nice little thing going on there. Yeah. I like it.
I like that too. It is a rarity, isn't it, for Bond not to, have every girl sort of falling at his feet. Whether Paula Kaplan, whether they had that relationship where they used to bone a little bit maybe, and now they don't, but she sort of knows what kind of a cheeky chappy kind of player he is, and it's just sort of a joke between them, or whether they never did and it's still that sort of relationship. I don't know. That's open to speculation, I guess.
There is one thing later on though in the film which does hint that something has gone on, is like when she's in the hotel and like they're meant to have, she thinks they've got a date, or at least Bond is due back. So she's like made herself look nice. There's a knock at the door. She thinks it's Bond. She's sort of, I love the way that the women in the 60s used to basically slide their hands down their sides to almost like, straighten their skirt to try and get their figure of their derriere, shall we say. And she was obviously doing that. She thinks Bond's there, so she must like him actually. She must like him more than Martine Beswick fancied, sure. But no, I think there must have been something there, because obviously she wouldn't have done that to look good. And obviously there's a bit where what's her name, Fiona Volpe comes in and she's like, oh, I have a date, he has a date with me too. And you can see Paula's a bit like, and then they hear the knock, don't they? And then obviously it's the men and stuff. So I think probably something might have happened. But again, an interesting an interesting part. She's sort of commits suicide, doesn't she? So she takes cyanide to stop it.
So
being questioned and stuff.
That always gets mentioned in the Fleming books, where Bond gets sent off with maybe a false button that's a cyanide pill or something like that in case he gets captured. And Bond's first reaction is always just to flush it down the toilet, get rid of it straight away because he knows he's not going to need it. So that was the kind of the easy way out for spies who get captured, and that's what Paula does, which is kind of, it's cool in the sense that that's like a classic spy thing, and it's good to kind of see that happen in a Bond film. But yeah, so I guess I don't know what that says about her, whether that shows that she's a stronger character because she's willing to take her life in the course of duty, or whether that some people might look at that as the coward's way out. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we know what might have happened to her had she not, with the cigars and the ice cubes. Maybe Largo would have done that to her. True. And if you've got that as an alternative, I think you got to look on it as a brave move, really, isn't it? And when Bond sees her, he hasn't got time to mourn her greatly because obviously, he's in Largo's place and there's men looking for him. But he does, he is a bit heartfelt that she's ended up like that. So it's almost like a mate, isn't it?
Absolutely.
More so. At least in Bond's eyes, I think it is. Maybe Paula's got a bit more for him than he has for her.
Yeah.
But interesting. But good character. Great character.
So next up, we have one of your all-time favourites, Fiona Volpe, who, I mean, goodness me, with that shock of red hair, that is the femme fatale perfectly personified on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I love Fiona Volpe. I think she's amazing. I think she's one of my favourite Bond girl characters in the whole series. I think she's strong. She can shoot. She rides a motorbike with rocket launchers, for Christ's sake.
Chris, yeah.
She's like, she looks great in leather. She looks great in her little blue negligee thingy when she's with Duval. And she's got a lot of spunk. We like using that phrase, but I think it definitely works with Fiona. She's almost seems to be the person that masterminds Angelo's sort of, the killing of Major Duval and the replacement with Angelo. Yeah. She's the one that sort of seems to set it up. It's not, Count Lippy is there, but I think she's above Count Lippy because she seems to be the one in power. So I think, she's got a lot of, a lot of power behind her in terms of what she does.
Absolutely, yeah. She's one of those that, again, she's sort of, you take someone like Kleb, for example, and she's very much of that same sort of thing, like a very sort of powerful woman who's very nasty and doesn't mind getting stuck in and dirty. Kleb's got her spiky shoes and all that kind of stuff, and she's a mean thing with her knuckle dusters. Volpe is just like I would say, a more sexually appealing version of that. You know what I mean? She's really hot, but she doesn't mind getting on a motorbike and blowing up a car with the rockets. Do you know what I mean? She's up for a bit, getting her hands dirty with the death and dealing all that stuff out.
Yeah. And I love it. I love it. I love the car ride as well. When she picks up Bond, he's just got out and his clothes are wet, and they have a great sort of chat where he notices the Spectre ring, and she's like, how far do you go? Oh, fasten your safety belt, and then it sort of speeds up, and there's that great line, some men just don't like to be driven.
Yeah.
Some men just don't like to be taken for a ride, sort of thing. And I think that's great. And there's, for me, one of my most favourite scenes in the whole film is when Bond comes into his hotel, and basically he opens the bathroom door, and who's there but Fiona Volpe in the bath. And what does she say, Tom?
She says, "Give me something to put on, Chris."
And what does he do?
He gives her a pair of shoes.
Oh, I love
I love that. Dude, that is the best moment in the whole series, I think, for me, in terms of Bond sort of being flirtatious. And what makes it even better is the way he hands them to her, and she just holds onto them and kind of looks at them, and the way he just sits back in that chair and sort of folds his arms and just looks at her as if to say, "What are you going to do now?" Oh man, that scene is genius. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Have you tried to rock that scene in real life before?
Sadly, I've never, come home to find a femme fatale in my bath. So
have you not? No.
That doesn't happen to me, sadly.
No.
But if it did, I would be rocking that immediately. Yeah.
Too right. And I mean, amazing scene. And then they get out, and she obviously, takes off his wet top and stuff, and then they move to the bedroom, and both of them know that the other one knows something's not quite right. And then you get a brilliant scene as well, where obviously they sort of wake up, they're getting dressed, they're about to go to the junk canoe, and basically Yanni and Vargas turn up, and Bond's like shuts the door, and then obviously realizes Fiona's in on it as well.
Yeah.
And Bond sort of mentions he sleeps with his gun under his pillow. Well, at least the gun was there, so he did suspect Fiona because of the ring. Identity has its dangers. But there's a lovely little bit where Fiona Volpe says, "Oh, of course, the girl hears the heavenly choir singing and immediately turns to the side of right and virtue, but not this one. Yeah. What a blow it must have been. You having a failure." And Bond's like, "Well, you can't win them all." And I love that because she just shows you how much fucking Bond, he just hasn't got a chance with her, at least not that way. And I think that's brilliant.
It's almost like it's almost like an answer to Pussy Galore, isn't it? In the sense that she was the femme fatale. Yeah, obviously he turns her at the end. And then this time that's not going to happen. And that to me is a strength of character moment, because she's so convicted in what she's doing that not even Bond's heavenly charms are going to kind of win her over, which I think is great.
Yeah, and the scene where they're in the bed as well is pretty cool. All these bars. Do you think I'll be safe? And all that sort of stuff.
I think it's brilliant.
It's cool.
Definite chemistry between them two.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And then we go to the junk canoe scene where Bond sort of tries to escape and he gets shot, so he's bleeding. And so you got Fiona Volpe and there's a dozen or so other Spectre guys, including Yanni and Vargas, out to sort of find him. And then they get to the sort of, is it the Kiss Kiss Club where they're all dancing, and he picks up the girl and dancing, and then she's like, "Oh, can I cut in?" And the other one's like, "You should have told me your wife was here." And then obviously Volpe and Bond sort of start dancing. That's a great bit because everywhere he looks there's like two Spectre agents there, two there, two over there, and all the time Fiona's like, basically, you're surrounded, you can't get away, come back with us and I'm going to sort you out type thing. And then he just sees like that gun coming up through the curtain as the guy's going mental with his hands on the drums, and it's going absolutely crazy, and I love that bit. And then just at the last moment he sees the gun and he doesn't turn her straight away, he waits for that little sound, doesn't he? He just knows when it's ready, and then turns her over, bang, she gets killed. Well, it's not a bang, is it? It's a bit more than that. But, and then you just see that little bit of blood on his fingers. And then,
I love how the music cuts out at that point, and it's like
so
all that
good.
build up, and then it's like, it's brilliant. I love that. It's so cool.
It is so effective, isn't it? I love it. Yeah, and then he's basically like, "Oh, do you mind if my friend sits this one out? She's just dead." Yeah, and then that's it, and that's Fiona Volpe done and dusted, which is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was. I feel like, obviously in the next movie there was a Bond henchwoman that was very much cut from the same cloth as Fiona. You could almost, if she hadn't have been killed, you could have almost brought her back for You Only Live Twice, I think.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, she's basically a carb. Like you've got Red Grant, and then you've got sort of your Stampers, your Eric Krieglers, almost carbon copy versions, aren't they? Hans, obviously, as well. I think Helga Brandt is the equivalent of one of those to Fiona Volpe, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's definitely like the Fiona Volpe of You Only Live Twice. But definitely nowhere near as good, nowhere near as much character to her. But definitely, Fiona Volpe set the tone in terms of femme fatales for sure.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely, without a doubt. So moving on to the kind of the biggest Bond girl of the movie, the one that he ends up with, which is obviously Domino. Any thoughts on Domino, Chris?
Well, super hot is comes to mind straight away. I think Claudine Auger is certainly a beauty.
Yeah.
Lovely, and I love her black and white bikini thing that she wears. It's really stylish. I think it looks awesome. But no, I think she's cool. So it's an interesting sort of backstory with her whole brother who was killed by Largo, and she had a really strong bond with her brother, didn't she? It was almost a bit strange, I find sometimes.
In what way?
No, just because it was almost, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into things too much, but she was a bit like, I don't know. I think she's just very close.
Are you implying that they were a little bit incestual, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
No, what do you mean? No. I think it's a cool character. I think there's good backstory, but she is, she's kind of definitely a mistress in terms of, she's a kept woman, isn't she?
Yeah.
She is Largo's kept woman. So what do you think about that?
So I think again, she's one of those where, I mean, you have to give her props because she is the one that saves Bond at the end. She's another one of those. She's like a Tanya, You would sort of be forgiven for thinking she was just a sort of bit of window dressing. She's definitely the damsel in distress for most of the film. She doesn't really know what's going on. She's sort of, the kept woman, as you say. So she's not a pussy galore, that's for sure. No. She's not one of those. So I mean, Domino is one of my favourite Bond girls. She is banging. Oh, goodness gracious me. But in terms of strength of character, there's not a great deal there, I would say. Would you agree with that? Or am I being too harsh, Chris?
No, I don't think you are, in all honesty. I think she's definitely not a bimbo. I definitely wouldn't put her in that, but she's not got, the pussy galore, the Tracy from Majesty. She definitely hasn't got that sort of level, but she has got some really good lines. I love the how do you know that? How did you know my name was Domino?
Yeah,
it's on your bracelet, on your ankle. Oh, what sharp little guys you got. Get to my teeth. That sort of exchange. There's lots of great dialogue, and I think that's good. I think I like the bit in the pool. When she's just swimming and he's like, I don't know much about guns. I know a little about women. And then she's like, and then, that's quite cool. Yeah. But she is basically a kept woman. So, there are some sort of parts, I'd say, where she could have been maybe a bit stronger, I guess. But the fact that she saves Bond's life, like Tanya in From Russia, that's, you've got to give her props for that. Because if it wasn't for her, Bond would be dead. Largo would have shot him. And
very true. And I think that whole thing about the sort of the damsel in distress sort of bimbo styly thing, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Every Bond girl comes out, they always say the same thing, don't they? Oh, this one's more of an equal to Bond. She's not just window dressing. They always love to say that. But I don't think there's anything wrong in having that kind of character. Do you know what I mean? It's like you get all walks of life, don't you? So you're going to come across people who are a bit like that, and that's fine in my book. If you're going to have the bimbo damsel in distress, I wouldn't call her a bimbo, but like the damsel in distress thing, I think that's totally fine. If that, I don't think that degrades the Bond girl in any way. But personally, I like the ones who've got a bit of spunk and they get up there and they get stuck in. But equally, I must admit, I'm a big fan of Domino. Goodness gracious me, Chris.
Gosh. She looks awesome. She looks awesome. Unbelievable.
So, what would
you
you
swimmer as well, which is good.
She is absolutely. So, what would you say is the best Bond girl moment from this film? I've already made my decision. I already know what I'm voting for. But how about you?
Okay. I'd say. Let me think. I was just thinking, are there any honourable mentions? The only one. Do you remember there is that Mademoiselle Laporte in the pre-title sequence? The French one,
of course,
who is with Bond. That's the only one that I could think
He has your initials, JB. That one.
Yeah. But she was about the only one. But so that's good. But in terms of best Bond girl moment, interesting. Well, I mean, probably one that we mentioned not too long ago, I'd imagine.
That's definitely my choice. The Give Me Something to Put On, Hands Are a Pair of Shoes. Yeah. I think that is such a genius moment. I love it. That's one of my all-time favourite Bond moments, let alone, Bond girl moments for this film or whatever. Yeah.
I'll join you with that one for sure. Yeah,
good stuff. Cool.
I'll agree with you on that one. Excellent.
All right then, that's Thunderball in the bag. Moving on, we've got some Yolt action, some You Only Live Twice. Yeah. So, as we were just discussing just now, we've got Helga Brandt, who is the femme fatale this time. For me, she is a sort of regurgitated Fiona Volpe. But am I just saying that because she's ginger, Chris?
Probably, yeah.
Do you reckon that's what it is? They have a similar look, don't they? That's it. They could almost be sisters, couldn't they?
Yeah. Well, she's definitely got an evil streak to her. She's that part where he's tied up and she's got the plastic surgeon. They use it to slice off skin. That's Bond's completely sort of helpless at that time. Obviously, uses his charm to try and get out of it. But I mean, she's a bit sort of quite vicious.
I do like that actually. That scene with the scalpel kind of thing. I think that is almost a hint of what a nasty piece of work she could possibly be. Yeah. But then the fact that she's like, actually, I won't. I'm going to stick him in a plane and then parachute out of it to get him. Yeah. Probably not the most sensible choice to dispatch Bond when you've got him tied up in a chair with a scalpel at his face. So I guess she loses some points there. But, maybe she just wanted to get a parachute out and have a little jump around.
I think she just wanted to fool around, really. She just wanted a quick one herself. Maybe she just wanted to...
and why not,
have a bit of Bond action. It is, that whole scene with the plane is a bit of a strange one, though, isn't it? The board comes down, she drops a lipstick bomb, and then just parachutes out, and you're like, well, you could have killed him, so much easier before. But, it's all part of it, I guess. And I like... Mr. Osato believes in a healthy chest. That's quite a good one. So I think she's good, and obviously again iconic death, isn't she?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the thing with that is like we learnt when we reviewed You Only Live Twice, wasn't there? There was like the famous briefing that Cubby and Harry gave to Roald Dahl, who obviously wrote the screenplay, where it's like, okay, this is the Bond formula that you must do, and I feel like almost You Only Live Twice feels like it was. I don't know. I think You Only Live Twice is an all-time classic, but when you compare it to the previous four, like we said when we reviewed it, it's just not quite there. There's those holes, like the whole plane sequence that you wouldn't have got in the previous four movies and things like that. And I feel like it can be a little bit by the numbers because of that. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like it's almost like he's kind of looked at the previous four films and been like, right, let's get the femme fatale like this and do that. Do you know what I mean? And sort of just put it together rather than, because obviously Helga Brandt isn't a Fleming character. You know what I mean? It's an original one for this. And I don't know whether I'm being too harsh there or not. What do you think?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, I can see what you mean. But You Only Live Twice does sort of dip away from the formula in the fact that basically he's got two equal Bond girls, and they take up half of the film each almost, don't they? Yeah. With Aki and Kissy, and you never get that before or since.
That's true.
You'll have your little character at the start, you'll have your femme fatale, you'll have your main one. That's been sort of the main formula. But here we've got two main Bond girls, and they're almost given equal screen time. Now that in itself is quite unique, I think. So what do you think about that, how it's played in those two characters?
Yeah, I think you mean Aki and Kissy, you mean?
Yeah.
I think the chemistry between Bond and Aki is like really strong and really up there. Yeah. And it is a shame that she dies, because I feel like Kissy and Bond have nowhere near the same connection. And it would have been, I feel like Aki should have perhaps lived on to the end. And that sort of, I feel like that's maybe where I was talking about with the formula. It's like, well, we have to kill Aki because that's the formula, Whereas I feel like she should have lived on. But with that said, Aki's death scene, man, is so good. That's such a brilliant moment that, like, it would be a shame to kind of lose that as well. So it's like, it's one of those moments where I'm like, I'm not really sure what I think, like in the sense that I would like to have seen Aki live on to the end, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to lose that death scene. It's a great one. But what
I
do
think you got to go. I think you got to go with the death scene because it's just so good. But also, I think that you can look at it narratively that the reason the Bond Kissy didn't have the same chemistry is because they weren't together. They were forced together for a mission, and Kissy always was saying, but this is business, this is duty. So she was always seeing that as part of the mission. She was never thinking of it as her and Bond getting it on. Whereas obviously Bond and Aki had a good sort of emotional tie, didn't they? Yeah. So absolutely. Maybe that is why the sort of chemistry wasn't quite there with the Bond Kissy, because there was a different outlook on the mission, I suppose.
One thing that can be said for Kissy is she doesn't shy away from travelling long distances on foot. She gets sent back
or swimming.
Or swimming. She gets sent back by Bond from the volcano. She's going for hours. She's running down that mountain. She's getting in the water. She's swimming long distances. Like, that's a reliable Bond girl, isn't it?
Yeah, all in the bikini as well.
All in the bikini and a white one as well, which is always nice.
One. Yeah, which is good.
So going back to Aki, I think there's a real strong connection between the two of them, and I like the fact that she's kind of like, there's that sort of teasing byplay with her and Bond where, you know, she picks him up in the car and she's the one that helps him escape from Asato chemicals. And there's the whole section where he's following her earlier on and she leads him down that little hallway.
That's
and that's
nice.
how he
I
meets
like that.
Tiger. Like, that's a really cool kind of thing. I love that moment where they're in that sort of corridor and she just stops and looks at him and he's sort of like not sure what to do. And then sort of just walks forward and then bang, he's in the chute.
He's been caught,
really like that sequence. Yeah. And again, that shows like Bond's weakness. Like he can't not follow the pretty girl, you know?
No. And Aki comes to his rescue so many times, like in the car when he's about to be gunned by Osato goons. You know, she's like, get in the car and they speed away. And then obviously arranges for the helicopter to pick up the other car afterwards. So I really like Aki, actually. I think she might be underrated, particularly as a strong character, because, you know, that rooftop fight, she's sort of flying down the rope and stuff like that, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's, you know, I think she's a really strong character and definitely one of the better Bond girl characters. In fact, isn't JBR listener John Williams, isn't Aki his favourite Bond girl?
Absolutely.
I think he mentioned.
That was. I think he did mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she's a really good one. I think Kissy, on the other hand, you know, she's very much by the mission. The scene where they get married, I think, is beautifully shot and like really interesting. You know, good bit of culture and stuff like that. I think, you know, and she's really good in the mission when they go. Obviously, when they're, you know, she's helping Tanaka and the ninjas go into the volcano and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So she is definitely good, and obviously at the end they end up on the rubber ring together, don't they? The bigger. Sort of
we haven't had
thing.
one of those in a while, have we? I would like to see a Bond film end where he's in a rubber dinghy with his missus, and just in the middle of fucking nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Miles from anywhere. And we had that a lot in the early years, and we haven't had one of those in so long. No. I would love to see that happen.
Get the old M sub back again. M1 sub.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. You Only Live Twice is different to some of the other films because of that two Bond girl, you know, main Bond girl structure. I think Aki's brilliant. I think Kissy is good as well, but perhaps not quite as effective as Aki, I guess. But overall, I think it's good. I think it's good, solid Bond girls. And different. I like this sort of culture that you learn. You know, different aspect from different countries.
Definitely. So, honourable mention obviously goes to Ling at the beginning of the movie. I think that little scene there with Bond's kind of faked death, that's a really, really strong opener. And Ling definitely deserves an honourable mention. Not only that, obviously she comes back in Casino Royale. She's sitting at the card table, isn't she? Does. Obviously a different character. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe that is Ling down the line. You never know. But there we go. So for you, Chris, what would you say is your best Bond girl moment in You Only Live Twice?
Well, Aki is my favourite Bond girl, and I think it's going to probably be the same as you, actually.
Okay.
And it's just that, for me, it's going to be the death scene with Aki, just because I think it's so beautiful. Like the ninjas coming in, there's sort of really quiet music, the wire with the poison, and you think it's going to get Bond and it gets her. She sort of licks her lips. And, like, you know, Bond is obviously upset, but the whole, when she's trying to struggle to breathe, I think it's just a brilliant scene. Fantastic scene, that.
That is a brilliant scene. I feel like that should be one of the all-time iconic ones, but I feel like it's a bit unsung amongst people.
Yeah,
like
I think it is.
But that, as you're seeing the poison drip down that string and all the rest of it, and they're sort of moving around, and like 1 minute Bond's lips are underneath the string, and then he turns over, and then all that kind of stuff. I think it's brilliant. I think that's a great Bond girl death scene for sure.
Cool. Excellent stuff.
Steady on, Chris. It's time for Honor Majesty's Secret Service. I love talking about this film whenever it comes up. It's brilliant. I love it.
I know. It's just so good. So where do we start then? Because there's so many. Where do we begin?
At the beginning, I guess, is the sensible place. Okay. So we've got, again, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like Bond's on the road. He's having a little drive, and then a beautiful lady drives past him, and he can't resist but to give a chase. It's like the Goldfinger sequence all over again.
But this time he hasn't got any discipline, has he?
No, he does not. Absolutely. So I think this sequence, obviously, he sees Tracy walking out into the water. She's going to kill herself. He goes and rescues her. Again, Bond just can't steer clear of the pretty ladies. He's got to go and get involved.
Yeah.
And I think with the sort of the real dark subject matter of what suicide is such a cool way to open the film. It's like Bond saving a girl from killing herself this time. That hasn't happened in the series so far or since. And that kind of whole thing. Obviously, there's some goons are there. He gets into a fight and all that kind of business. And I think that is like the root of the whole relationship with Tracy throughout the whole film. It's just like she's in trouble. He comes along and rescues her, but she doesn't really return the love that he would expect for doing that for her. And she makes him fight for it, which I think is really, really cool. I think Tracy's banging. I think she's amazing. What are your thoughts?
And then she just drives up and then drives off, doesn't she? I think it's brilliant. So here's a question for you. Do you think On Her Majesty's would not have happened had Tracy been a munter? So if Bond had,
that's a good
so if
point.
Bond had seen this this sort of shall we say slightly more unattractive lady venturing into the sea, do you think he just would have gone, you know what, I'm a bit hungry, I might just pop to the shops instead?
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't see him thinking, I'll probably get my shoes wet. Yeah, that is a very good point. Had Teresa not been beautiful, maybe he just wouldn't have bothered to get involved and that whole thing wouldn't have happened. Yeah. How about that?
Maybe.
But there we go. What a great introduction to Tracy. And I've said this before.
Yeah.
What I love about her is how damaged she is and how she doesn't give a shit. And I said before as well, there's that one line where she says, Teresa was a saint, I'm known as Tracy, which says it all, man. That is such a brilliant line because it sums up her character in just one phrase. And I think that's brilliant. We've said it all before about Tracy. She's there. She helps Bond out. She's behind the wheel in the Getaway from Peace Gloria. When she's captured by Blofeld, she's up there. She's giving it her all. She's the one. She's smashing the bottle and all that kind of stuff. And she's a tough cookie and brilliant. And I feel like even though she is damaged and a bit of a tearaway at the beginning, I think by the end of the film, Bond comes into her life. I think it straightens her out a lot. And I think had she not been shot, then I think they would have been very well matched together. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, don't forget Bond is damaged goods as well.
True.
He's seeing in her what he is. He knows the sort of what she must have gone through to be at the position to want to commit suicide at the start.
Yeah.
He's been, he can at least appreciate what she's been through, and I think that's what makes them even more of a really good match.
Yeah, good
But
point.
I mean, we could talk for hours about all of her scenes in Majesty's because they are so good. Like that scene, like where, suppose I should kill you for a thrill. I can think of something a bit more, suitable. And he grabs her arm and really grabs her arm, and they just don't, like you said, she doesn't give a shit, but they're not soft walking on, tiptoes around each other. They're both on it, aren't they? They're both like, they just don't care, and they'll say what they think, they'll do what they want to do. And she's fantastic. She's good in a fight. She killed Gruntley, this big wrestler type bloke, and she killed him. She was on the skiing, brilliant skier, jumping off roofs. She's just awesome, absolutely awesome. And you can't think of a better girl for Bond than Tracy, I don't think.
Absolutely not.
At all. You can't.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's like she matches up to everything he asks her to do. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like Bond has to take the wheel in the car. She's absolutely fine behind that wheel. When they're escaping the avalanche, obviously, she does get caught by the avalanche and all that kind of stuff. But
so does Bond.
So does Bond. She's a great skier. She matches up with him with all those things. And again, hand-to-hand combat, she takes down Gunter. She's brilliant, Tracy. I've got a lot of time for her. Yeah. The only thing that used to put me off her when I was a wee lad was that casino scene at the beginning, and the way her hair kind of curls down makes it look like she's got a pair of sideburns. I used to be like, oh, I don't like that when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know that is a bit of a strange one, but it is a bit weird. But yeah, no, she's brilliant, and I think, yeah, I mean, you just can't. She probably is the strongest Bond girl character of them all. The best match for Bond. They would have moved to a house in Tunbridge Wells had things gone well, and probably would have a few kids by now. But no, for me, you can't get better than Tracy. You just can't. Absolutely. Because she's so good, so good.
Absolutely.
So
next up, who's next on the list, Chris?
So we've got Draco's sort of mistress type person, I suppose you'd call her, which is Olymp. Now she's obviously she kind of almost gave the game away to Tracy about Bond being there and stuff like that. But Olymp's, she's again, I mean, Majesty's is another film full of stunners, and she's a beauty. And obviously Drax, I'm sure, has
Draco.
Draco, sorry, yeah, Drax. What am I on about? Draco has one or two nice things to say to her at night. But yeah, no, I think she's cool. She does her job. She's not in it for a huge amount of time.
Yeah,
but definitely.
I would say Olymp, honourable mention.
Yeah, honourable mention for sure.
Absolutely.
And then I guess we've got obviously the Angels of Death. Now, the main ones we sort of meet as particularly Ruby Bartlett from Morecambe Bay, Lancashire. So what do you think about Ruby, who doesn't like chickens?
She doesn't like chickens, does she? I think, she's cool. I think I love that sequence when he rocks up and they're all there and they're all flirting around the dinner table and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think that whole sequence is brilliant, and I love how different ones end up in his room and all that kind of stuff. I think that's great. I think one of the best moments, Bond girl moments in Majesty's, is the whole lipstick on his thigh. Just a slight stiffness going on. I love that. That's really nice. I try and use that line wherever I can. Which isn't all that often. It's not as often as I would like, definitely. But yeah, I like it. I like the sort of. I like the fact that she's not your typical bimbo. She's got sort of like the short hair. She's a proper northern lass. And all that kind of stuff, which you haven't really seen in a Bond film before. You know what I mean? So it's kind of nice to see that other side of things. Or since, good point. Yeah.
So, and she's good because you wouldn't call her the sort of typical Bond girl stunner either, would you? No. But there's just some real nice sort of fun between them sort of thing. They both know what they're there for sort of thing, and both happy to do it. But yeah, no, she's an integral part of the film, I think, in terms of with Bond and the whole, the sort of hypnotizing sort of scene where the music plays and the colours are there, and she sort of, shush, Hilly, I have to, get my zone on, sort of thing. I think she does that well, sort of thing.
I got to get my zone on.
Yeah,
very nice.
So so she's good, and then obviously you got Nancy, who's kind of like the other one that Bond visits in the night and has a good time with, and she's obviously pretty good as well.
Yeah, and, a stunner, and she is the inspiration that he needed her to be, obviously. It's all very good. Again, honourable mention for Nancy. I think she doesn't do a whole lot apart from sort of sitting there looking bloody beautiful, I must say.
And I guess the rest of the Angels of Death as well. Obviously, Joanna Lumley, we have to give a shout out to. Definitely. And all the others. I mean, all good stuff.
Absolutely. So a lot of Bond girls in Majesties. Yeah.
A lot of Bond girls, a lot of hot Bond girls, for sure. But Tracy rules a roost for me. Just absolutely perfect. Brilliant stuff.
Absolutely. So what would you say is your best Bond girl moment in Majesties then?
I mean, could you say perhaps a proposition scene in the barn? Maybe even Tracy's death, being shot, perhaps.
That is a tricky one, isn't it? I think it is a tough one to choose because it's like, you've got Tracy behind the wheel of the car, driving, getting Bond away from Peace Gloria and all that kind of stuff. You've got so many moments in there that are like, even that scene in the pre-title sequence where she's walking out into the water and George carrying her out of the waves is just such a brilliantly shot sequence. There's so many things you could choose, but I think if you were to choose one based on the pure importance of the scene, I think it's got to be that end scene, isn't it? Where she gets shot, not because it's a nice scene, but because it's like that is what the whole thing hinges on about. That moment, isn't it? And if you'd have read the book before that you saw the film when it came out, that would be the scene that you'd be waiting for, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And again, the impact, massive. You think of anyone who hadn't read the book, who went to cinema to see that for the first time, thinking of the past 5, where it's all been good at the end, and suddenly you hit with that, and you're like, what the, Dude,
imagine how brave that must have been at the time, because at the end of the day, it's a Bond film. You want the happy ending. That's what everyone was accustomed to. And then all of a sudden, it's like the worst possible ending, short of actually Bond dying himself. Yeah. And to end a film on that, man, that was so brave to do. And
so brave.
I think based on that, I'm gonna actually say, that's the one. That is the moment based on the bravery involved in doing that. Because it could have been so easy to be like, oh, let's have the wedding at the end, and then give it the nice happy ending. And they didn't. And oh man, just thinking about that makes me think what a missed opportunity Diamonds was, and how much I'd love to see that version with George, man. Good God. There we go. All right then.
Let's move on.
Moving on from Majesty's, let's get on with one of Terry Bamber's favourite Bond films, Diamonds Are Forever. We have quite the gallery of Bond girls this time around as well. So let's start off with perhaps the main Bond girl, Tiffany Case. So Chris, what are your thoughts on Tiffany?
Well, I best not answer how she got her name, because I think that might come up. But no, I tell you what, I really like Tiffany Case early on in this film. I love the part where Bond walks in and he's like, "Oh, weren't you a blonde when I walked in?" She's blonde, she's a brunette. Then there's a redhead. She's quite sassy. She's quite she takes her his thumbprint, doesn't she? So she's quite clever. Obviously, she's proper into her diamonds. She's got a bit of obsessed with diamonds, but she is a player, isn't she? She is a major part of that sort of diamond smuggling pipeline, and I really like her in that sort of first half of the film, shall we say? What do you think of?
I think with Tiffany, it's one of those things where she starts off strong. And then by the end of the film, she's sort of like devolved into the sort of silly bimbo type. Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, she's a diamond smuggler. She's, she's hangs out with gangsters all the time. Essentially, she is a gangster of sorts herself. She's not going to be a shrinking violet. She's going to be, a tough woman. And I think at the beginning of the film, that's definitely what you see. She's very sort of, standoffish and doesn't take any shit kind of thing. And you got that scene where she backs up behind Curly at the gas station and all that kind of stuff, and she's giving it all the mouth, brilliant. And then sort of by the time she's got that sort of purple outfit on at the end, that's the sequence with the machine gun where she falls into the water and the cassette tape in her bum cheek and all that kind of stuff. It's just it just evolves into silliness, and I don't think the Tiffany Case at the beginning of the film. It's almost like a different character by the end of the film. You could have done an kissy kind of trade off with somebody else, I think, by that point.
Yeah, completely, because it is two almost different characters. It's a shame, because there is a lot of potential there, because I think like we said, there was a lot of good, strong parts of the character early on. But you're right. I mean, just the fact that she basically machine gunned herself off the back of an oil rig. It's like, I know the humor in it and stuff like that, and it is interesting, but maybe there could have been another way or whatever.
I almost feel like it would have been stronger if she had have been the one in the pool. And do you know what I mean? And then he ends up with plenty at the end. Do you know what I mean? And that would have made perfect sense that way around, I think. Maybe actually. Maybe. So I think she's definitely a memorable character. She's got a lot of sort of memorable stuff that she does, and I think Jill St. John was good in the role. There's a good bit where her and Bond are on the waterbed in Las Vegas, and they're sort of trying to not kind of outdo each other with what they're trying to find out about each other, which is quite cool. But it's just a bit of a shame that by the end of the film. But then again, that's our opinion, and I'm sure there are people out there that love it, that love the fact that her character turns quite humorous by the end, and that could be their favourite part. So it's just it's a bit different for everyone, I guess. But I'd say the latter part of the film, she's clearly in bimbo territory, and is one of the reasons why the whole Bond girl bimbo stereotype gets played around so much. Her
character in the second half of the film, particularly the end of the film, is
it's kind of like you've got your Mary Goodnights, pressing the button with her bum and setting off the stuff and all that, and you got Tiffany with the machine gun. That is sort of like just silly Bond girlage, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day. But there we go. Other than that, I think she's a classy character in the sense that she's a strong, Yankee broad who doesn't take any shit, at least for the first half of the film. Exactly. I think that for me would have told that off nicely. If she'd have been the one that dies in the pool, I think that would have been infinitely more powerful than Plenty. And then Plenty is the bimbo he takes with him to the oil rig at the end. Then that would have made it's almost like they traded characters. But
it is. Yeah, that's a really good point. It would have worked more that way, I guess.
So speaking of Plenty, what do you think of Plenty?
Well, she certainly is. She's no, I mean, it's only a small role, isn't it? But again, super memorable for various reasons. I mean, she is involved in one of the best scenes in the film, which is, I didn't know there was a pool down there. And I know I can't do it quite as good as you on that, but I mean, that is a great bit, isn't it? I love that bit.
I do it?
Yeah, go on, you're so good at it. Go on.
I didn't know there was a pool down there.
That's so good, man. So good. But that's brilliant. And, her and Bond are about to get it on, and he's like, caught me with my hands
more
up.
More than my hands up. What a line.
It's a cool thing. Yeah. She's basically a gold digger, isn't she? So there's not a huge amount, again, to her. That's her thing, is she's there to try and find people with money, and so she hasn't got a huge motivation. The strange thing about her character is, if she was just in the pool scene where she's chucked out the window, great, but then it gets a bit weird then, because there's obviously, we see her drowned in Tiffany's pool, don't we? And now there was a scene that was shot where apparently after being chucked into the swimming pool, Plenty sort of came back up to the hotel room, saw Bond with Tiffany, and found Tiffany's address in her handbag or whatever, and that's why she was going to be there. And then obviously they thought she was Tiffany and then killed her. Obviously that wasn't in the film, but that was kind of what happened. So I don't know. I think she's obviously short time, fair enough. I think it did well. I think that there's some good humour there, and yeah. What are your thoughts then?
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like we never really that deleted scene explains how she ends up in Tiffany's pool, because it's like, how else would she have known to go there otherwise? You know what I mean? But yeah, again, she's one of those that is just, definitely of the bimbo variety, and that's all in all about it, really, for Plenty for me. So moving on, we've got Bambi and Thumper. Now, what do you think about these two, Chris?
Well, I love it because, Winton Kid, great, and Bambi and Thumper, okay, they haven't got the screen time, but I love the fact that you've got these female gymnasts that all, use their skills and their abilities to thwart sort of Bond, basically to attack Bond and stuff like that, and they're almost the protectors of Willard White, or at least they're keeping him captive, aren't they, under instructions. I love that concept. I love the house is brilliant, and the fact that they're on the rock and swinging off the stuff and kicking him into stuff and flipping all around the place. I think it's great. I think a lot of people know Bambi and Thumper are in a Bond film, but they might not be able to remember, okay, well, what, the normal sort of fan, the casual fan, would have heard of Bambi and Thumper for sure, but might not have been able to picture exactly, what happened in the scene or what it was, or perhaps what film. But
or they might attribute them to the Disney film of Bambi instead.
That's true. That's very true. Maybe. But no, I love the concept of these sort of gymnasts fighting women. I think it's great.
Yeah. I think you could almost class them as being a little bit underused, to be honest. I feel like they could have kind of shown up more than what they did. But
I think they should have done. I think if you'd seen them maybe in one scene earlier where perhaps they were either against Bond or perhaps against someone else, but Bond witnessed them, and then suddenly they're gone, and then when he sees them, he knows what's coming, sort of thing. Yeah. That might have worked. I
always imagine that they would have been at like one of those Vegas shows or something, like doing one of those acrobat shows. If we'd have seen them in that setting earlier on in the film,
Yeah.
And then see them again at the end. That
would have been perfect. That would have been perfect. Seeing them doing the trapeze and then just sort of flipping around or whatever. So you know what skills they've got, and then see them. Yeah, why was that not done? That would have been absolutely perfect. It's a shame, missed opportunity. But yeah,
hindsight is 2020, my friend. You know. Yes. Here we are, decades later. It's easy to prescribe these things, I suppose. But
so, how do you think about the way that they were thwarted by Bond?
It didn't perhaps take a lot, did it? It was like from one minute they're sort of giving him a run for his money, and then the next minute they're being dunked in the pool and sort of that sort of it. But it's within the realms of that style of film, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's true. It is what it is, really. I think you're not going to get the hard and gritty Bond in Diamonds Are Forever, that's for sure. No. So there we go. Any honourable mentions for this one then?
I think definitely we've got to go back to the pre-titles with Martine, who obviously Bond's got an interesting way of disarming her, or at least
does.
Sort of whipping off her bikini top and strangling her, which is quite interesting.
And if you can freeze frame it at just the right second, you do get to see it all, Chris. You get to see it all. Not that I've ever done that personally. I've just heard that around being spoken about by other Bond fans. Was
it Michael Kerwin that did it by any chance?
Maybe it was. But there you go. There's the nipples of Bond. That's another episode for us, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely
not the nipples of Bond. We don't really want to talk about that, but the Bond girl nipples. But the little glimpse at the beginning in the pre-title sequence. Where can I find him? All that kind of stuff. Good on you, Marie. We salute you. Brilliant. So, what would you say, Chris, is your best Bond girl moment in Diamonds Are Forever?
I don't know. It's an interesting one. This, I think. I do like Tiffany Case at the start where she changes her, she's blonde, brunette, redhead. I think that's clever. That whole scene is interesting. But it's not really iconic. It's a good scene that showcases the character of Tiffany Case. So from that aspect, I think that's good. In terms of like a memorable one, I don't know really. What about you? What would you say?
It's tough, isn't it? There isn't one that really leaps to mind for me with this film. I think, like something like Thunderball is obvious. Something like Goldfinger is obvious with those killer scenes. I think what you could say, I suppose, is for me, the two that leap to mind would be either, Tiffany changing her wig every 5 minutes and sort of leading Bond down the path with that, or I would say when Plenty shows up at the casino, named after your father, perhaps. That's such a cool line.
Yeah.
I really like that. Cool, yeah. But for me, I don't think there is one moment that screams, yes, that's an amazing Bond girl moment in this one.
No, I don't think so. Maybe even Bambi and Thumper's fight against Bond.
Maybe.
That's pretty good. But I agree. So a couple of interesting scenes there, but maybe not one in particular.
Absolutely. So moving on to our final film of the day, we're talking Live and Let Die. Now, let's launch straight in, Chris, with a bit of Miss Caruso. Okay. How do you feel about Miss Caruso?
I'm a big fan of Miss Caruso.
Me too.
Madeline Smith. She's a beauty, absolute beauty. And, what a scene. What a great scene, isn't it?
Yes.
See Bond in his apartment. Obviously, M and Moneypenny rock up at whatever it is, 3 or 4 in the morning. And the Italians are wondering where their agent Miss Caruso has gone. You wouldn't know, would you? And it's Bond loves putting women in cupboards. Or actually, no, she went in by her own accord, didn't she?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like we said when we reviewed Live and Let Die, I think this scene with Miss Caruso sets the tone of what Roger's Bond was going to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when you look at Dr. No and the introduction to Sean, that is Sean's Bond encapsulated in a moment. And I think the Live and Let Die scene where, there's Em and Moneypenny standing in his apartment at God knows what o'clock. She's hiding in the cupboard, it's just, that's the cheekiness of Roger summed up in one scene, I think. And, what a great introduction to Roger. You wouldn't see Roger at the casino table like Sean was, doing the James Bond bit, because that's just, obviously he does do that kind of stuff throughout the series, but as an introduction to Bond, it's like to a new Bond actor, it's like this for me is the cheekiness of Roger all wrapped up into a neat little parcel.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting if you look at the introductions of all the Bonds, slightly off topic, but Connery, Casino, George Lazenby, basically, in the car going to the beach. Then you got Rog having just shagged a bird in his apartment. You got Timmy Boy basically parachuting out of the plane. Obviously, you got Pierce doing the bungee jump, and you got Danny Boy basically getting his license to kill. So they're cool ways, and they do. That is a really good point. The very first scene for each of the different actors who have portrayed Bond is a really good standalone point to show what to expect for the rest of their tenure, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if you look at like for example, Pierce with GoldenEye, you've got that amazing stunt, and then you've got the kind of the very first time you actually see him is hanging upside down in the toilet cubicle. Beg your pardon, forgot to knock, and it's like. That for me, the Pierce is like the mixture of that. Do you know what I mean? It's like you got the mixture of the cheekiness with some like jaw-dropping stuff that goes along with it. Like that bungee jump is so amazing. And say what you will about Pierce, he definitely had a darker side to him as well. Shooting Sophie Marceau at point blank range and all that kind of stuff. It's again, we got to review all those pre-title sequences at some point, man. It's too much of a fertile topic to ignore without a doubt.
We digress, though. I do apologise about that. But also, one of the best lines in the film, sheer magnetism, darling. I mean, how cool is that? Yes. So good. So good.
Yeah.
And, very amply proportioned, I would say.
Absolutely. Good old Miss Caruso. We salute you with both hands. Next up, we have Rosie Carver. Now, what are your thoughts about good old Rosie?
Yeah, now this is a tricky one, isn't it, I think, because... she's kind of so she's working for Kananga Center, but she's she must also work for the CIA because she's got CIA, gun and stuff like that. So she's a double agent basically. So she's got that sort of interesting backstory to her. She previously worked with Baines, the agent that was killed up in the hills. Yeah, up in the hills down there.
Yeah,
that's always a strange one. But I do like Live and Let Die actually. But so she's got this interesting backstory, but the way it's portrayed is almost so inept sometimes that it's really hard to believe that A, she could be a CIA agent, and B, that Dr. Kananga would ever think of hiring her because I don't know, she doesn't quite bring it. For me personally, I mean, there are a few interesting scenes, and I do like the fact that the voodoo scares her with the hat and the feather and the scarecrows. I think that's good, but I just think she's a little bit too, a bit too inept.
She is a bit inept, isn't she? Like for a spy, it's like there she is on the boat. She's sort of misinterpreted the whole Quarrel Jr. thing. And so she's sort of every step along the way, she's just a bit bumbling, isn't she? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up in the hills down there, like you say, she's sort of slipping up with that, and then just the sort of again.
I know what you're about to say.
One of my favourite things about Roger Bond is just what a
say.
sexist bastard he is, and I love that sequence where they've just boned and he's got her at gunpoint and he's like, I certainly wouldn't have killed you before. Like, I love that, man. I love it so much. I love it when because it's so awful and he does it in such a way that just makes it so brilliant. I love it. Oh, good God, yeah.
Yeah, it is great. It's so funny that it just fired in my mind and I just saw that it fired in your mind at exactly the same point. It's great. But she definitely has a part to play, I'd say. Again, I suppose it is a femme fatale, but you never thought Bond was in danger. When Bond was we're against Fiona, you're like, Fiona could definitely do something here. Even Helga Brandt to a certain extent, the scalpel or whatever, the domatone. Now with Rosie, you never ever felt Bond was in trouble whatsoever, did you?
No, there's never any real sense of jeopardy with Rosie Carver. It's like
no, not at all.
Very easily outsmarted, I would say. Bless her heart.
But again, quite an iconic death. Well, maybe not iconic, but quite a memorable death for sure. Yeah. Obviously, she's Scarecrow's scared shitless, sort of runs away through the sort of fields, and then there's a Scarecrow sort of catches her and then shoots her. We then find out from Teehee that had to shoot the girl because she was about to let on to Bond, even though she was running away from him. But okay, So do you think this scarecrow was only loaded with one bullet, and that's why Bond wasn't shot? I think we might have discussed this when we
I
reviewed
think we did. I think that's probably what it is. Isn't
that's
it?
what we're going to go
you know,
with. Yeah.
you get a poison dart or whatever it is, or one bullet or whatever, and it's just in loaded in. But I suppose, you know what? I suppose thinking sort of politically for the time, because Live and Let Die, again, the book is a very politically charged novel with race relations and all that kind of stuff. You read that book nowadays and it's like, oh, fuck me, there's some real nasty shit in there. And I suppose it certainly wasn't the first time, but like it's the first time on screen we've seen Bond like an interracial white on black thing, which we haven't seen before. I think, if I remember rightly, the first time that happened was in a Star Trek episode. It was Captain Kirk and Uhura, I think, was the very first one.
Okay.
But so
but it's still
'70s,
breaking boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's still
totally.
It's still,
without a doubt.
Especially around the whole blaxploitation time, and with everything that was going on. Obviously, South Africa like censored all of that stuff, didn't they?
They did, didn't they? Yeah. That was all. Yeah, it was all snipped out. They weren't the biggest fan of that in South Africa at the time, were they? To say the least.
No, not at all.
To say the least.
Sure.
But so Rosie gets some points for that, broadening some minds around the world, which needed to be broadened. So good on you, Rosie, for that. Good stuff. And then, oh my goodness me, Chris, it's one of the most beautiful Bond girls in the whole series. It's time for some Solitaire. Oh, good Lord.
I've got plenty of time for Solitaire.
This is where it's
even now I've got the time for Solitaire.
Even now I have got time for Solitaire. Anytime she wants to pop over for a JBR interview, Chris, she is more than welcome.
A bit of gin rummy, we'll find some space.
Definitely stacking the deck. Hopefully she hasn't learned from the first time that happened. Definitely stacking the deck on that one for sure. Goodness gracious me. Yeah, I think Solitaire, not only is she absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful in Live and Let Die, even now she is still absolutely banging. Oh, good God.
Smoking,
I need to have a little sit down.
Smoking Seymour.
So this is an interesting one because she's the only Bond girl with magic powers. Chris, how do you feel about that?
She is. I actually really like it. I love the fact that Live and Let Die is slightly different to other Bonds. The fact that you've got the voodoo, the occult, you've got this otherworldly, you've got the sort of spiritual side. For me, it makes it unique in the Bond canon. And I know Live and Let Die is a huge sort of film for you. And I really love Live and Let Die as well. And I think stuff like that is what helps make it such a special film. It's just this sort of stuff which you just don't get anywhere else. And with Solitaire, I love it. The first thing we see is her like with the is that no, it's probably not. No, the first thing we see, is her. Oh my God, she looks amazing. When they go when Kananga's pressing the tape and he's pretending he's sort of doing a speech. Is that the first time? I think it is. But the first time we see her when she's prophesizing Bond's arrival is brilliant. So we see her with the cards and that's fantastic. So we know she's got these sort of powers. And then when Bond is taken to, when he goes into the Filet Soul and they meet, and it's a great scene, that one. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I think that whole scene. So do you mean the one where the booths turn around and just before tea he gets him in the finger thing.
That's it.
I think that's brilliant. I love the cheekiness of Roger. I think that's the best thing. I love when she walks in and finds him sitting in her little chair with the robe things on his shoulders and all that kind of stuff. I love the bit I love the most is again, it's another super sexist Roger moment. I just love him. I love, obviously, he stacks the decks with the lovers cards so he can bone her, and obviously that's a powerful moment because she loses her powers if once she's been deflowered, and Kananga had that in mind. He was going to do that. Bond gets there first. And then I love the bit where they're in bed and she's sitting there staring at the ceiling and she's like, oh my God, everything's different now, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. He's like, darling, I try not to be too mad, but I kind of stack the deck, you know. Man, it's just that way. He's like, try not to be too upset. Do you know what I mean? I love it. Yeah. I love all that stuff. Yeah.
I just basically manipulated you into bed, but you know, just don't worry about it.
I've just ruined your life so I could get my end away. Try not to worry about it, you know.
And by the way, can you just tell me about this? And then she's like, oh no, I've lost my powers. I love the way when she's sort of describing the whole, you know, the underworld and all this, the powers have been lost from whatever, you know. She sort of starts spouting this spiel, and Bond is just sort of going, what are you talking about? What are you on about? But Solitaire, I mean, she's awesome. Like she looks stunning. I think if I'm right, I think she's the Bond girl that gets bedded most that we see on the screen. Many Bond girl. Well,
she was obviously a late starter, Chris. You know, she was deflowered in the film. So, you know, once that sort of, you know, once that ribbon has been sort of snipped, so to speak, then you would want to make the most of it, wouldn't you?
I suppose so. Yeah. But she is cool. There's lots of cool bits to it. I mean, I like the scene when they go to investigate the poppy field. They see what's there. The helicopter's sort of firing and like, you know, they lie down and then they get onto the bus. And Solitaire, she's right up there and she gets in the back of the bus. She's holding on while all the crazy stuff is going on, which is pretty cool. They get to the boat and then they go away with Quarrel. But then she gets kidnapped, doesn't she, when she ends up back on San Monique, which is rather unfortunate.
Bit of a shame, yeah. And she gets punched in the face by Kananga, which isn't very nice. But
what a scene though that is! How like that for me is one of my favourite scenes in the whole film, just because it shows how brutal, but also how powerful Kananga can be. Yeah. You know, Bond's just come in, the wristwatch thing. You know, can you read the back of Bond's wristwatch? 50-50 chance. She gets it wrong. Like, but Bond by this point has been taken to the farm by Whisper, and he's like, you know, our JBR listener Martin Wiley gave a great sort of quote on this on a recent episode about you know, when Kananga's like, you know, I wanted to take away the power. What was it again? Something like that.
He says, when the time came, I myself would have given you love. You knew that. Bang. Yeah. Which is a very dark moment.
It's such a powerful scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really dark moment, but a great moment as well. And then from that point in, you know, she's basically screwed in terms of what's going to happen to her when she's with Kananga. And then the next we see her, obviously the voodoo ceremony. She's brought out with some rather low cut sort of white top. I must say, cleavage on show for sure.
Yeah.
So she gets brought out, and the whole again, what I was mentioning earlier about the whole sort of spiritual stuff. Actually, witnessing a voodoo ceremony, I'm not sure how accurate it is, but that's what if I ever go to see a voodoo ceremony, that's what I want it to be like. If I end up on Haiti, I want to see like loads of massive candles. I want to see people sort of crossing themselves like 80 times in a second or whatever, and doing crazy dances and Abawal, this guy in a big sort of goat mask or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, and then seeing her about to be sacrificed. Obviously, we saw in the pre-titles what happened. And yeah, so it's quite cool. What do you think of that whole bit towards the end with Solitaire then?
I tell you what, I've just had a moment of inspiration thinking that.
Go on.
I'm going to make that my new text alert on my phone. So every time I get a text, I think I'm doing that immediately after we hang up after this podcast, man. Cool. That's my new text alert.
I'll text you after we finish just so you can get it then.
Very nice. Cool stuff. Cool. Sorry, I've lost track of what you even asked me now.
You
asked me about the voodoo ceremony.
So Solitaire, voodoo ceremony, Solitaire. What do you think about that whole bit?
It's definitely a moment, isn't it? Because obviously we see it at the beginning, don't we, with the dude that's all tied up and the snake biting him and all that kind of stuff. So we've had a little snifter of what that can bring at the beginning, and then obviously, you know, Bond with his massive gun, you know, kind of rescues her at the last minute and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, big old magnum, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like one of those old school. That scene is like one of those old school, like sort of cinema serials. You know, you'd have those like episodic 3-minute movies back in the olden times, like Flash Gordon used to be one, for example, back in the day when you go to the cinema in like the 30s and 40s or whenever. It has that sort of feel, almost like an Indiana Jonesy vibe about it, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. No, it definitely does, actually. That's a good shout. You know, the girl's sort of tied up, but it's in a strange surrounding, sort of somewhere sort of a bit foreign and a bit sort of, you know, unaware, you know, you don't quite know what's going on. Very much so, actually. Yeah, that's a really good point. And but obviously he manages to sort of save her. He chops down the rope just before she gets bitten by the snake as well. And then they go underground, don't they? They do their old tapping on a Samdi sort of grave, and they go under, go through the mine, and then they end up in Kananga's lair, and then they get tied up. And Bond manages to get out, obviously, with a saw, and they get away, which is great. So another scene that I really like with Bond and Solitaire is a train scene on the end. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, well, that's a classic Bondian tool, isn't it? Bond on a train with his lady, and then a henchman shows up. There's a bit of a struggle and a fight. I like how with this one, like, she's completely incapacitated throughout and doesn't even know it's happened. I think that's brilliant. Obviously, she's on the top bunk. The bed kind of gets pushed up, so she's safe and out of the way of the fight. There's the whole thing with Tee-hee, you know, and then just being disarming, darling, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, brilliant. I love that sequence. I think it's brilliant. And she makes it to the end without being killed, so good for her. Yeah,
and also I like the fact when they're playing cards. And Bond loses. You know, he normally wins at everything, doesn't he? Pretty much. Yeah. And this time she's like completely trumped him on Jim Rummy. And then he's got the old adage, if you know, lose at cards, maybe you'll be lucky at something else. So that's quite a cool little link, I think.
Absolutely.
So there we go. Solitaire. I can't think of. Are there any honourable mentions for Living or Dying?
None that spring to mind. I think that's it, isn't it? You got Miss Caruso at the beginning, you got Rosie Carver, and you got Solitaire. Unless there's any that have slipped our mind, I think that's it. Yeah,
maybe not. So, what would you think? Okay, if we have a very, very quick run through of the main Bond girls, who do you think Bond would have? If he had stayed without that Bond girl, how do you think it would have gone? Okay, so if we went with Honey Ryder, if Bond had stayed with Honey Ryder, do you think that would have worked or not?
No, I think he would have had perhaps more fun than usual with her because, you know, she's only got to T in the encyclopedia, so he could teach her a lot, I think. Yeah. You know, goodness gracious, the things he could teach her when they get to the V module of the encyclopedia, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they would last that long. No. I think Tatiana, I think that would have been over within a couple of weeks. Yeah. Pussy Galore, I think, has a very good chance of it being a long-term relationship. Yeah. But I feel like maybe both of them it wouldn't be Bond drifting away from her. I think maybe eventually they would both drift away from each other because Pussy's that strong-minded person. Yeah. She's very ambitious herself. With Thunderball,
she'd probably just want to go to the island, wouldn't she? She'd just want to go to her island, and Bond would want to obviously have other stuff to do, I guess.
Yeah, but, he'd get bored. Yeah. Domino, I think that wouldn't have lasted very long. You know, I think after the initial physical attraction, I don't think there'd have been much going on together with the two of them. With Kissy, obviously in the book, they actually, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read the You Only Live Twice book, but, you know, they get married and he actually settles down with her and they have a kid in the book, don't they? Yeah. When he's all amnesiaed up,
Yeah, so do you think that could have ever happened with the screen Bond if he had stayed with that Kissy from the...
No, I tell you why. Because I think in the book, he's got the head injury, he's got amnesia, doesn't know who he is. And it's kind of like, what would you do in that situation? And it's kind of like, okay, he's just sort of building a life for himself. Yeah. I think Bond being who he is, he's not going to live in some Japanese fishing village for the rest of his life. It's just going to be, you know, that would be it, I think, really.
Although, if Aki had been the one, there would have been a greater chance of that, perhaps.
I do, because again, she's a strong woman, isn't she? She's, you know, a spy in herself. She's, you know, racing around in cars and God knows what. I think there could have been more going on there. I remember John Williams' quote, actually. He said that scene when they're in the Kobe docks, she's just wearing like a grubby old jumper, like a grubby old sweater running around, and she still looks beautiful. And I've got to agree with that statement. Yeah, she's great.
So one of the Bond girls who I don't think wouldn't have worked was who is that one in Majesty? Is that he had a bit of a thing with, I can't remember what was her name again.
Do you mean Tracy?
Oh yeah, that's the one. I don't think that would have worked. Nah, that would have been
That is an interesting question of whether, had she not been killed, how long that relationship would have lasted, whether they would have been together forever or not. I think there is a chance that they would have stayed together long term, but I think there would have been some infidelitous stuff going on at the same time. Would you agree with that?
Well, you know what? I'm a bit of a romantic man sometimes, Tom, and I would like to think that both of them could keep the other one entertained by using their ingenuity in the bedroom. And I think I could have seen them with kids, and I think maybe they both would have not. They both would have quietened down a bit, but I think they both could have kept things going where they needed to keep things alive. I think without a doubt that would have been the closest thing to that ever happening, for sure.
Very nice. I could see them being like Sting and his missus, getting into tantric sex and all that kind of stuff just to keep it going. Yeah. I could see that perhaps happening. Yeah. And there we go, especially as it moved into the 70s, for sure. So what else we got? So with
Tiffany
Diamonds,
Case.
Tiffany. Again, I think I remember in the books they did have they did stay together for a while in the books. I think she was mentioned in the next book. I haven't read that in a while, but I have a vague memory that they were seeing each other for a while afterwards. Again, I don't know. I think Tiffany Case is perhaps a bit brash for Bond.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would have lasted. And then with Solitaire, that is an interesting one because that would be a very difficult one to say goodbye to. But
It would be.
But she's again going to be very innocent and naive, which is all very good fun for a while, but you're going to get bored of that after a while, aren't you? So
definitely. No, I think he probably would have had fun for as long as he possibly could. But then, perhaps the other side of things wouldn't have flicked his switch as much, I think Tracy definitely, and I think Pussy would have been a really strong contender as well for long term compared to all the others so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting to speculate on it though, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we missed out the best Bond girl moment from Live and Let Die. Do you have one?
Oh, we did. Let me think. It's got to be. I don't know really. I do like the whole. There's no sense going off half cocked with Bond and Solitaire. I mean, I do just like the fact that she has this power. I do like that doing the cards and with her prophesizing Bond's arrival. I really like that. I think that's such a cool thing. So for me, it'd probably be something along those lines for sure.
For me, I think it's when he's explaining how he stacked the deck in bed because it's so awful. I just love it, man. I love those moments. They just absolutely crease me up. That would be it. The try not to be too mad.
You should do a little montage as an edit of Roger's most chauvinistic scenes.
Yeah, the chauvinism of Roger's Bond. I'm well up for that. Yeah, a little montage of that for sure.
Nice.
So that's our Bond girl coverage for today taken care of.
Yeah.
We will continue that next time, obviously. But before we do, I think it's time for some Bond facts, isn't it, Chris?
Ooh, it is indeed. We haven't had Bond facts for a little while. So... Bond fact, just to let our JBR listeners know. So generally, sometimes if we're breaking a podcast in more than just one, we'd normally do it in two. With the Bond girls, we're going to spread it over 3 parts because there is so much to talk about, and it's all good stuff. So this is obviously part 1 of part 3. So anyway, Bond fact number 1. The character of Vesper in Casino Royale was based on Ian Fleming's fleeting affair with Christine Granville, whose nickname was Vesperali. And the character name Vesper Lind is also a play on the country or on the town West Berlin. So obviously connotations there.
Yeah.
Bond fact number 2, both Daniela Bianchi and Lewis Maxwell appeared in the 1967 film Operation Kid Brother, starring Sean's brother Neil Connery, as well as Bernard Lee, Adolfo Celli and Anthony Dawson. Now, apparently this film has never been released on DVD or Blu-ray, and it's meant to be a pile of crap, but I'd still want to see it. I'd love to watch it. I mean,
do you know what? I think that's on YouTube. I think the whole thing is actually up on YouTube, so it's worth a watch.
Wow.
It's weird, isn't it? When you see old films from that sort of era and you see Bond alumni in the cast, there's a definite odd feeling about it, isn't it? It's almost like you don't expect them to be acting in other things other than the Bond. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you see Bernard Lee crop up in something, you're like, hold on. What's him doing in this film? Why is he in his office? Do you know what I mean?
It's pretty cool. I like that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll have to check it out then. If anyone can find it on YouTube, it's probably, although it's only got, I think it's like got 2 stars or something on IMDb, definitely worth a watch just to see. Bond fact number 3. Prior to becoming Bond girls, a lot of the early Bond actresses were noted models and former Miss World contestants. Mee Hammer, who played Kissy Suzuki in You Only Live Twice, she apparently worked as a bus conductor before becoming an actress. So interesting. You wouldn't normally sort of just get a bus conductor and say, do you want to be in a Bond film, would you? So there we are. Bond fact number 4. While filming love scenes for Live and Let Die, Madeline Smith was being closely watched by Sir Roger Moore's overprotective wife on set. So that must have made things quite difficult. What do you think?
I can imagine that made things a little bit tense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. Bond fact number 5. Bond has sex with 4 women in Never Say Never Again, the most of any Bond film to date. However, the character he sleeps with the most on screen is Solitaire, which is 4 times. Although it's a safe bet, he slept with Tracy, obviously a lot more, Paris Carver, a lot more, Vesper Lind, a lot more, and perhaps Sylvia Trench too. So there we go. Bond fact number 6. In Casino Royale, the film, Vesper was originally scripted to be wearing only underwear in the shower scene, but that was later changed due to Daniel Craig's argument that her character wouldn't have had time to strip down. So imagine that classic shower scene in Casino Royale.
Do you know what? I think that was a banging choice because for me, the fact that she was, I remember hearing somewhere that she was either meant to be naked or in her underwear. I don't know, whichever is true. I don't know, but like, I think that would have taken away from that scene and how powerful it is and how meaningful it is. There she is. She's just witnessed Bond kill a man. The fact that she's in her clothes under the shower is so much more powerful than if she'd have been naked or in her underwear, I think.
I 100% agree. And then seeing Bond going in to join her in his clothes as well. Oh, man, I love that film. Yeah. And that scene's so good, isn't it? It's brilliant. Fantastic.
I'm gutted that those interiors were filmed on a studio, man. When I went to the Casino Royale Hotel, if I could have found that shower or even one that just looked like it, I was so down for recreating that scene.
That would have been awesome.
What a shame. Yeah.
Oh, well, another time. We'll have to get it built at some point, but there we go. Finally, Bond fact number 7. Quantum of Solace marks the first time that Bond and his leading lady don't get hot and heavy under the sack. So I wonder if that'll ever happen again or not.
Oh, what a one to miss out on as well, Chris. Good God.
I mean, Olga Kurylenko is, like smoking, basically.
For me, Daniel stepped in Casino and said, no, Vesper's got to have her clothes on in the shower. I'd have read that script and I said, no, hang about. I'm going to need a nudie bedroom scene with Olga. That's my stipulation. I ain't making this film unless that happens. That's what a one to miss out on. Goodness me.
I tell you what, you would enjoy in that case is in November Man. There's a particular scene with Olga Kurylenko, and I think you'd enjoy it. If you watch the film, you definitely know what scene I'm talking about.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to get it up on the old Netflix, and I'm going to have a watch. Definitely, that sounds right up my street, Chris. Yeah. I'll have a watch. Definitely.
Okay, good. I'm glad you got that right.
Good stuff.
So
thank you for today's instalment of Bond Facts, Chris. It was it was illuminating. Very nice. So that takes us on to today's Bond trivia round. Obviously, we posed some questions at the beginning of today's episode, and now we shall answer them. So, Chris, I'm going to go first. My question of the day is, why did Tiffany Case's mother name her Tiffany?
Now, I think the answer was because she gave birth in a jewelry store which was the Tiffany's jewellery store.
Chris Wright, you're absolutely correct. Well done. Good stuff. In the book, basically the story goes that her dad was so disappointed she was born a girl and not a boy that he basically gave her mother a bunch of cash and a Tiffany box, whatever that is, and bugged off. Yeah. And she never saw him again.
Wow.
So,
really?
So there we go. Yeah, interesting.
That's an interesting.
I think the film version has more. Is a bit cooler. I think.
Yeah. For her sake, it wasn't Van Cleef and Arpels.
Yeah. Hey. Oh, you only did it. I was just about to say, and for a bonus question, can you remember Bond's retort? And you've only nailed it without me even asking the question. Well done,
well,
Chris.
There we go. Yeah. That was lucky. Okay, so my Bond trivia question of the day was, Mr. Tom Sears, which Bond girls can you name that have a surname that ends in O-V-A? Over.
Okay, how many do you know of?
I know of 4 that I can think of.
Okay, Tatiana Romanova.
Yes.
Anya Amasova.
Yes.
Pola Ivanova.
Yes. Now there's one more that I can think of. You're going to kill yourself when you get it because you're about to get it. It's a biggie and you'll know it.
It's a biggie, is it? Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Hold on a moment.
Do you want a massive clue? Or shall I wait until the light bulb goes?
Don't give me a massive clue. Give me a little clue. Is it a recent film, an old film, a middle film?
I'd say it's middle to recent.
Middle to recent.
More recent.
Hold on.
Go on.
I'm getting some stirrings. Hold on. So it's not Natalia Semyonova.
Yeah!
Yes! Of course.
Nice one.
What a dickhead. There we go.
There we are. Excellent. No, you got 4. I can't think of any others. I'm not sure if there are, but yeah, those are the 4 I could think of.
Heaven forbid, Chris. Just wait for the onslaught of emails and tweets and Facebook messages that are about to come. Oh my goodness me. Yeah,
I know. But
ourselves.
Yeah, excellent stuff, man. Top marks, all 4.
Thanks very much. Good stuff. Yeah. Cool. So it's time for the Guess the Quote round.
Bond. James Bond. There we go.
I believe it was my quote last time, wasn't it, Chris?
I think it was your quote, yes.
So I'm going to perform it for you again. And this quote is...
Okay, I've forgotten actually what it was. Yeah, go for it.
I'll have to go now.
That's done so well. It's unbelievable.
I'm going to do it.
Can you do it again? Yes, please.
I'll have to go now.
I love it. I love the fact that you can nail 60s whenever you want. You just nail the 60s accent. And I love your female 60s as well. So I believe it's a female from the 60s.
Well done.
And I think it is... Well, a pretty safe bet. I think it's Miss Taro from Dr. No on the phone just as Bond walks in.
And he's done it again. Well done, Chris. Top marks. Good stuff. Miss Taro it is indeed.
Oh, excellent. It's the delivery, though. Delivery is awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a new quote for you this week as well. Are you ready, Mr. Tom Sears?
I certainly am, Chris. I'm waiting with bated breath.
Okay, so my quote this week is... Katsuta, Katsuta.
Oh, you son of a bitch. What is that? So do it again. I know what that is. What is it? Tell me. No, don't tell me. Just do it again.
I can't tell you. Okay, right. I'll do it again. Katsuta.
Oh, fuck, man. You have got... I know that from... I know what that is.
Is it a good one?
It is a good one, man. Congratulations for that performance because that was beautiful.
I think you'll get it. I definitely think you'll get it.
I know I'm going to get that before next week without doubt. Yeah. Cool. All right. Cool. Good stuff. Excellent work. I'm loving the foreign languages, one man. You do so well at those.
Thanks.
So it's time for this week's listener quote. Now, last time we had a message from Mr. Stu Bell, which was this one.
Up there.
Okay, so any ideas on that one then, Chris?
Yeah, I definitely had a good feeling from last time, and I believe it might be from one of my favourite Roger Moore films. What about you? What do you think?
I would say you're on the right track there. I have a feeling there's a plane involved, and I have a feeling Kamal Khan says, "Go out and get him," just beforehand, and then who says what?
I think Govinda, his manservant type person, says, "Out there."
There it is.
And
I think you're absolutely right. Should we have a listen and see if we got it right? Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's have a listen.
G'day, Tom and Chris. It's Stu Bell here, just phoning back with the answer to the quote I left you. It is, of course, Octopussy, right in the plane at the end where Bond's on top and Kamal Khan goes, "He's a madman, he'll kill us all. Go out there and get him." And Govinda says, "Out there?" And it just cracks me up every time. I knew you'd get it straight away, though. But anyway, keep it up, chaps, and catch you soon. Cheers. Bye.
There we have it. So thank you for that, Stu. We scored this week, Chris. We got 4 points.
Excellent stuff. Cheers, Stu.
So
have we got a new one?
We certainly do. We have a new quote from Mark, who didn't leave his last name. So let's have a listen to Mark's message.
Hi, Tom and Chris. This is Mark. I have a James Bond blog, 007grandslam.com. Huge fan of the podcast. Been listening right from the start, and I want to get round to leaving a listener quote. Okay, so here goes. I'm pleased you approve, since you are paying the bill. Cheers. Okay, there we go. It shouldn't be too hard, but I will leave the answer next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Okay, so any ideas on that one?
It definitely rings some bells. Yeah, no, for sure. I think the delivery was awesome. The accent Mark did was spot on. So it definitely got a solid idea on that one. What about you?
It's definitely on the strength of that accent and performance alone. It's definitely jogged some memories for me. Definitely. Excellent. I think I'm confident with that one. So thank you for that,
Mark.
Nice
one, Mark.
Make sure you go and check out Mark's website as well. That sounds good. So that is the end of the Guess the Quote round, which brings us on to this week's edition of Guess the Music.
Ooh, I like the reverb on that one. That was a good one.
I put a bit of vibrato on the end of it, Chris. I thought
I like that.
I'm going to take it to the next level this week.
Yeah, I liked it. That was good.
Thanks, man.
Nice incarnation of it. Excellent stuff. So, guess the music cue. We obviously had one last week. Now, the one last week, I think I remember you being definitely sort of quite confident about it, and I think rightly so. It's quite a cool piece. It is quite a recognisable piece, but it's only short, so it might not be easy for everyone. But let's have a listen and see what people think.
Let's do it.
Okay, so what do you think of the first one this week?
I like it. It's a nice cheeky little piece of music. Makes me smile. Yeah. I like it a lot. Any
ideas?
I'm just gonna put it out there. I would say that is the scene where we see little Nelly being constructed in You Only Live Twice.
I would say that is the scene, and you are absolutely correct.
Yay!
Woo! Excellent stuff. So, pretty much exactly what you said. It is when little Nelly was being constructed, and it's a cool little bit of music, that, isn't it? I like that, and I thought it was quite a fun piece of music. Okay, so we've got a new music cue for this week. Now, this one, this is going to be interesting. I think this will definitely be a bit harder. I think you'll recognise the sort of decade, perhaps. But I think this one will be a little bit harder. So let's have a listen to this week's music cue.
Let's check it out. Okay, all right, yeah. I'm on the sniff with the composer for that one for sure. I'm on the sniff with that, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, as opposed to what scene that is, I'm not immediately sure straight off the top of my head. I have some suspicions. But yeah, we'll obviously, Chris will reveal the answer to that music cue next week. Okay, so that brings us on to this week's edition of Complete
the
Lyric
Section.
Very nice. This is the little game we play where we pose a lyric from one of the Bond songs, and we have to get the following lyric, not the title of the song, the following lyric, which is more challenging than one might think. So, Chris,
Certainly.
I think it was your lyric last time, wasn't it? If I remember
It
correctly?
was indeed. Yes, it was. So my lyric last week, Tom, was any woman he wants, he'll get. Now, does that give you any sort of idea of what it might be, or what the line after might be?
It's definitely one of your countrymen. Not that you're actually Welsh, but you live in Wales. So in that sense, it's one of your countrymen. It's good old Tom Jones. It's good old Thunderball. So I'm on the case, Chris.
You're on the right path. Okay,
Now,
so what do you think regarding a following line?
Can I hear the line one more time, please?
You can. Okay. Any woman he wants, he'll get. See, I'm trying to throw that off.
But yeah, I like what you did there. He'll get, he'll break any hearts without regret.
Oh my God, you're so good at this. That's just so good. Excellent
Very
stuff,
nice.
Tom.
Thanks.
You're blinding at this one, aren't you? It's good. I like
Thanks very
it.
much. That makes me feel good about myself. Whenever I get compliments, it raises my self-esteem, and it's good. Thank you.
That's all right. Now you're about to blast my confidence. What lyric have you got for me this week?
Right. Here it comes. Are you ready for it?
Not really, but go for it.
My lyric of the week is:
Yes.
You drift through the years, and life seems tame.
Ooh.
You drift through the years, and life seems tame.
Seems tame. Like it.
Okay. So I will reveal the answer to that next week. Obviously, that's this week's lyric in the bag. How are you feeling about it? You confident?
I'm getting definitely hints of what it might be. Yeah, in terms of the actual line, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. But I'll play it and see if I can jog some memories in my
Cool
head.
stuff. All right then. Yeah. So it's time for our final segment of today's episode, which is everybody's favourite. Let's face it, it's Bond Celebrity Deathmatch. This is where Chris draws out 2 cards at random from the James Bond Top Trumps card deck, and then we muse on who would win in a fight between the two of them, inspired by JBR listener Michael Kerwin, whose original question was who would win between Bunt and Kleb. And that inspired this entire segment. So there we go. So now, what did we have last week?
Well, there's a couple of little interesting things here. First of all, I forgot to mention something with Bond facts, so I'm going to do it with this one. Flames, explosion, fire. James Bond Celebrity Deathmatch.
There it is. How could we forget the theme tune? Good
so anyway, there's that. Now, interestingly, so last week we had... I know. Crazy, isn't it? So last week we had Pussy Galore and Francisco Scaramanga, and although Pussy put up a good fight, Francisco Scaramanga did go to the final. Now we've got an interesting setup now, because this is the last matchup of the second round. Ooh. So there isn't any shuffling needed or any flicking through cards, because I've got the last 2 cards of the second round in my hand right now. Okay.
I'm excited.
So, would you like to know who they are?
I would.
So, okay, we have in the red corner, we have a certain Baron Samedi.
Very nice.
Yeah, can you see that, Baron Samedi?
I'm already feeling confident for Baron Samedi, because after all, he is the man who cannot die. So he has got a strong advantage here. Okay, cool. I'm excited.
Now, he will be facing in the blue corner up against none other than, this is going to be interesting, Ernst Stavro Blofeld from You Only Live Twice. Oh!
Goodness
now
me.
Now then. What do we think about that?
Jimmy Savile over there.
No, he's not in it. He's definitely not in it. So yeah, what do we think? Okay, should we? Let's go. Let's start with Baron Samedi then. So obviously, as you mentioned, he is a man who cannot die.
Yeah,
Tom, he cannot die.
Well, let's break it down.
Okay.
Okay. So Baron Samedi, He's a big dude. He's very
is a big
limber.
dude.
He has long
He
limbs.
is, especially for a big dude.
Yes. He's very agile. You can shoot him in the head, Chris, and he just it's nothing. It just doesn't even bother him. He just looks up and has a little laugh about it.
Okay. Anything more?
He just doesn't die. So, what do you think of the bad sides to Baron Samedi?
Now, it's hard to point out if there are any, because like you said, he's a big lad. He's good with he's got, well, I don't know if he's good with the sword, because Bond bests him with the sword, but he's got lots of snakes as well to back him up. He's got the whole voodoo thing going on. He can make people scared of him. But there is the other side to him. Now, with the whole shot in the head, that might have been a robotic Baron Samedi as opposed to actually Baron Samedi. So Some people say that isn't the original guy, that's just a robot that they put up. But some people think, no, it is him and he's just crazy. But anyway, okay, so the downsides to Baron Samedi. He's into face paint. So maybe if Bond could pull a Jill Masterson on him and paint him all over in white, Blofeld in white paint or whatever, and suffocate him. He likes sitting on the front of trains, which is a dangerous activity. Some might say an extreme sport. Yeah. But whether or not he could be harmed doing that, perhaps if say a monorail were to get him on the front of a monorail, maybe that could be made to crash into something. It's tricky.
I've got to be honest, Chris. I'm struggling to find downsides to Baron Samedi. I'm struggling to find weaknesses because no matter what you do to him, he just keeps coming back. So I am struggling with that. So I'll tell you what, let's have a look at Blofeld and then we can do a pros and cons breakdown and then compare them. So Blofeld is the mastermind behind everything, basically. Let's face it. He has at his disposal, and this is Donald's Blofeld, so let's go with that. He has a hollowed out volcano with a monorail, which, as you just mentioned, could become Baron Samedi's undoing, maybe. Though he looks very comfortable on that train in Live and Let Die, I must say. He does. He has Hans, he has a pool of piranha. He has a rocket that can eat other rockets. And he's again, the breakdown comes to Blofeld isn't a very physically imposing character. He needs somebody else to do his dirty work for him. He's not going to get stuck in with the punches and the kicks. Not hand to hand. No. Not mano a mano. He's not there. So that's definitely his weakness. What are you thinking? Are you having any gut feelings? Any thoughts? Well, I'm trying to work out. I think that Baron Samedi has a secret sort of fear of cats, particularly white cats, and I think Blofeld could potentially use that to his advantage. Now, I'm thinking a couple of things. What would happen if Baron Samedi was caught and placed kind of Hugo Drax-esque underneath Bird 1's blast chamber, and the rocket would just let rip with loads of flames and basically incinerated Baron Samedi so there's nothing left of him? Do you think he would still survive that? That is a good question. And robotic Baron Samedi aside, I think I think personally, it says it in the film, Baron Samedi, the man who cannot die. And we've seen him shot in the head. We've seen him, knocked into a basket full of poisonous snakes. And yet he still comes back. So, if Solitaire can have the power to see the future, then surely Baron Samedi has the power to not die. Well, what about if he was fed to a load of piranhas then? Basically, what we're saying is, if his body is incinerated so there's nothing left of the body, if his body was eaten completely, stripped to the bone by the piranhas, physically there won't be anything left. What you'd see, if there was anything, would be an apparition, would be a spectre, so to speak. So it'd be a ghost Baron Samedi. So
So he, as a ghost, as a spectre, he would not be able to then inflict any damage on anyone else because he would be ethereal. He would be like,
Well, I tell you what, Chris, I've just jumped on the old Googles and I've had a little research, and there is a little something that could actually sway our opinion. Cats feature very heavily in voodoo superstitions.
Oh, there we go. See, I knew there was something behind that.
Now, one of the most powerful animals to use in voodoo was the cat, particularly a black cat, it says, but a cat will do.
Oh, okay.
Now, here is one of the superstitions that it is very bad luck to move a cat from one house to another, and you get 7 years of bad luck if you kill a cat.
Ooh,
so, I feel if in their meetings Blofeld's cat somehow got involved and Baron Samedi was to kill that cat, he would be, which is, probably what he would do. If the cat jumps on him, he's going to like swat it away. The cat falls in with the piranhas, unfortunately, and the piranhas eat the cat. Oh dear, 7 years of bad luck for Baron Samedi. He's a big time voodoo man. He's going to start feeling like, oh shit, what have I done? He's not going to be on his A game. Then sneaky little Blofeld comes in, pulls out his revolver or whatever, bang, or presses the bridge button. Samedi's in the drink with the piranhas, which let's face it is the bad luck coming to fruition.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to go with this. See, I like it. We do research. We do detailed research here at JBR. We don't just speculate upon without any backup, do we? Yeah. We do solid research. And no, I love it. I knew a cat had something to do with the voodoo, and I think that is its undoing, because you never see him with a cat or anything like that. Obviously, you wouldn't, in terms of the Blofeld thing, but in terms of the whole ceremony and all stuff like that, and I think that could be it, because I think his body could definitely be eaten. I think it could be incinerated. His spirit might live on, but I don't think that could then do any damage itself. Maybe, so even if he didn't die in spirit form, I still think he would die physically. And I think Blofeld, with everything that he's got, including the cat and the piranhas and everything else. And
Blofeld would be clever enough to know about that voodoo superstition, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah. He knows everything.
So maybe that's it. It's kind of like the mythical vampires, for example, that you just can't do anything to them unless they get caught in sunlight or a stake through the heart, and then they die. So maybe that's the Baron Samedi thing, is like if you kill him in a certain way, then he doesn't come back. But, a gunshot to the head doesn't matter. So there we go. So, for me this week, I'm going to go with Ernst.
Yeah, and I am as well. And you know what? That is a big thing, because, like you said, we've had the man who cannot die, who's done extremely well so far. And you think, well, how could he be bested? But I think that is the way, is that physically he potentially can die when you find the right way. Yeah. Spiritually, he might still go on. But with Blofeld, with everything that he's got, I think there'd be a way for him to sort it out. And he's got the cat. He's got Solomon the cat.
I feel like with Jaws, he's hoisted by his own petard and Spy Love Me by his metal teeth. You know, and I think Baron Samedi's voodoo power would be the thing that is ultimately his undoing. So I think that's my vote. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that. It's nice. It's got a nice thing to it. Excellent. There we are. Brilliant stuff.
So Blofeld's gone through.
He has. Do you want a full roundup of who's in the next round?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is really the heavy hitters. This is into the quarterfinals. So we have the aforementioned Jaws. We have Oddjob. We have Emilio Largo, Xenia on the top, Francisco Scaramanga, and Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Very good. We're getting into the later stages of the game here, Chris. It's getting exciting.
It is. I know.
There we go.
Tough stuff. Going to be tricky now.
We will continue Bond Celebrity Deathmatch next week. Now, there's something else very timely that we should talk about before we round out today's episode. Is that obviously we're recording this on Thursday evening, and the podcast is coming out in the morning, Friday, which is also the time when Sam Smith's Writings on the Wall will be released, or at least it gets its first play on BBC Radio 2. And you can download it on iTunes as well tomorrow. So obviously we haven't talked about that in today's episode because we haven't heard it yet, because to meet our JBR release deadline, we've got to record it before the deadline. So there we have it. So hopefully by the time you listen to this, you've also heard Sam Smith's Writings on the Wall. And we had the little 15-second segment teased to us,
which I really liked. Really enjoyed
I did
that,
as well.
actually.
Feels very Thunderball-esque.
Yeah, and The World Is Not Enough, actually. Definitely got a bit of The World Is Not Enough in there.
So there we have it. So today is a double celebration. Not only do we get Bond Girls episode 1 JBR podcast, we get a new Bond song to add to the already legendary pantheon of bondage over the last 50 odd years. So basically we should just say good luck, everybody. I hope it was good and I hope everybody likes it. Much discussion to be had on Facebook and Twitter, I would believe.
Well, I'm pretty sure that we'll give our own little review video once we've had to listen to it. Probably about 18,000 times. It will just be played on loop. No matter if I'm at home, it'll be on the laptop on loop. If I go out, it'll be on my mobile phone on loop. I'm just going to spend like a whole, even when I'm in bed. You know, some people listen to little music to sleep. I'm just going to play it 24 hours straight, bang, 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 bang. That's if I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
If it's a stinker, I probably won't. But I've got a really good feeling that it's not going to be a stinker. So
good stuff.
Yeah, fingers crossed, everyone. Fingers crossed.
Good stuff.
Writings
all
on
right,
the
cool.
wall.
Something else that should be mentioned as well. The release date of this podcast is September 25th, which means it is 1 month and 1 day until Spectre comes out, dude. That's it. 4 weeks. And
that's crazy. And
that's it. So we're getting close, man. As soon as that calendar crosses over to October,
I know.
Oh my goodness me, it's going to be exciting. Oh, I can't even. I'm all peculiar again. I've come over all strange. All right, cool stuff. So today's episode was The Bond Girls Part 1. Obviously, Part 2 will be coming next week. Hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed talking about it too. Much to be talked about next time. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And James Bond Radio will return with The Bond Girls Part 2 next week. See you then.
Bye.